Oscar Pistorius will appear in court for a second time later this morning in connection with the death of his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp, who's accused of murdering at his home in Pretoria. The Paralympian denies the charge and intends to apply for bail. His court appearance comes on the same day as a memorial service for Riva Steenkamp. The horse meat scandal has continued to spread across Europe, with beef pasta meals made by the world's biggest food manufacturer, Nestlé, being withdrawn from shelves in Italy and Spain. The company said horse DNA above 1% had been found in Buitoni beef ravioli and tortellini ready meals. They've been withdrawn and all Nestlé beef products are being tested. Elderly residents of sheltered flats in Luton are being told their mementos are a health and safety risk. The Borough Council is ordering pensioners at Wheatfield Court to remove all personal paintings and ornaments from shared areas, insisting it's for their own good. Resident Graham Wright begs to differ.
It'll be like a prison in here, I mean. It'll be like walking down the corridors of Woodhill in Milton Keynes. Are they coming round on Wednesday, putting bars up against the windows, changing it to HMP Wheatfield Court? Who knows?
Hertfordshire's Tory leaders are being accused of having a DIY attitude to potholes. The county's Liberal Democrats claim their request for the roads to be assessed for damage after the recent snow was dismissed by the Conservatives, who said they'd only be checking main roads. Lib Dem councillor Malcolm says that it's not good enough to leave fault reporting to residents, many of whom have no idea how the system works. In sport, Watford are at Ipswich tonight in the Championship with defender Joel Ekstrand back in the squad. The Hornets are third in the table at the moment. And the weather foggy and frosty this morning, drier and brighter later with a top temperature of 8 degrees Celsius. That's 46 degrees Fahrenheit. There's more news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/Three Counties. BBC Three Counties Radio. First for news.
If I came to your house, Kath, could I look at your knickknacks?
You can have a rifle through.
Excellent. It's good to know. We'll talk more about this knick-knack story in a little bit. Residents told they can't have their knick-knacks on display in public areas. No. We'll discuss it later on. We'll speak to the council and find out why. Lots coming up on the show this morning, as always. Keen to get your opinions on it. Lots of phone calls yesterday, which was wonderful. Keep that going, please. Speaking in a minute about a Hertfordshire couple who refused to move to a smaller council house because one of the bedrooms is dedicated to their son who died 10 years ago. How much sympathy have you got for them? 08459 455 555. Potholes. Noticed a few of them around beds, hearts and bucks? There's loads, aren't there? Well, you might have to fill them in yourself, according to opposition councillors in Hertfordshire. And fat balls. Have the birds started tucking into your fat balls? We talked about this last week, and we've been told by you how the birds were ignoring them. Well, we'll catch up from Paul with Paul from Biggleswade as we pursue our new feature this morning, Paul's Balls. We'll be having a look at Paul's balls a bit later on and finding out if anyone's touched them. Facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can text 81333. Start your text 3CR. Put your name on, please, otherwise it don't get read. Oh, look, I have a completely empty switchboard. Who wants to be the first caller on the show today? You? Do you want to be the first caller? Well, then give me a call now. 08459 455 555. 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, this is fascinating. Have a listen to this, because I really need to get your opinions on this. I completely see both sides of the story. A couple from Hertfordshire are refusing to move to a smaller council house because they haven't changed their son's room since he died from cancer 10 years ago. Cheryl and Michael Chapman have lived in the same three-bedroom house in Welwyn Garden City for 23 years. Due to bedroom tax changes coming into effect in April, they've now been told to downsize or pay £31 extra a week. Well, Cheryl spoke to our reporter, Jessica Cooper, about her son, Anthony.
We're stood at the moment in what was Anthony's room, and around us there's lots of things that are reminders of him, including the Tottenham Hotspur curtains and a scarf up here, but also lots of photos. And you've kept this room the same for years, haven't you?
Yes, we have, yes. It's to remember him by, and this was how he had his room set up.
You haven't got a bed in here anymore, but you've put two computer desks in here, so you have adapted it slightly, but the majority of the room you're keeping the same.
We only changed this last year. This room was his room up until last year when we decided, OK, then we put the computers in here. It was time. It had been 10 years, so we thought, yeah, OK, let's start going into the room, and because we hadn't used it at all. My husband, he would hardly ever come in here. It's quite hard for him to... It was to start with when we first put the computers in here, for him to come in and sit at the desk sort of thing, and knowing that, yeah, this was his son's bedroom. We feel closer to him in this room.
It's still light outside when we're talking, but the curtains are shut and the light's on. Is that, again, a conscious decision to keep the light on in here?
Yes, it was, yes. We got home from the hospice that day and the light went on, and it hasn't been off since. It was just so that he could always find the house. I know it may sound silly, but it was, for us, it was, well, keep your light on so that you can always find your way home.
You've recently been approached by the council to do with the bedroom tax changes. What did they say to you when they came to see you about having extra rooms?
They said that we could either downsize or we'd have to pay for the extra rooms. Because we got 2 rooms, we'd have to pay 25%, about £31.
And how do you feel about that then, either move or pay more?
We don't want to move. We will just have to find the money to stay here. Even if we have to go without stuff, then we will stay in this house and try to find the money to pay for these bedroom tax.
And what are the main reasons why you don't want to move?
One, the bedroom, and also is that our son is buried over at Hatfield Hyde, and the council gave us that plot because my mobility isn't too good, so they gave us a plot that's 5-10 minutes away. If we move, then I'm not going to be that close to him.
People listening to this who might be the people who are thinking they really could benefit with a bigger property, and to hear that there are 2 of you here in a 3-bedroom house, can you understand why some people might be thinking that you should go to somewhere smaller? Why do you need 3 bedrooms?
Oh, I can understand what people thinking, oh yeah, you should get out because you only need so many rooms sort of thing. You've got too many rooms. And I feel sorry for those people that are waiting on the list to get rehoused. We use one of the rooms because my husband sleeps in there. Because of medical reasons, we can't some nights sleep in the same bed together. And of course, this room is our son's room. And we promised him 10 years ago that nobody will sleep in this room. And nobody has. I'm not breaking a promise.
What do you think about that? 08459 455 555. Very sad. They lost their son through cancer. No parent should have to bury their child. That's not the natural order of things, and that shouldn't happen. Very sad. But it was 10 years ago. What do you think? 08459 455 555. In a statement, Welwyn Hatfield Borough Council said approximately 900 council homes will be affected by bedroom tax changes from April, and they've sent out advice letters. They said they can only advise Cheryl and Michael of their options. Quote, if they wish to remain in their property and receive less housing benefit, then by all means, this is their choice. Neither the benefit service nor the trust has any intention of placing pressure on them to transfer to a smaller property, unquote. Well, in about an hour, I'll be speaking to Cheryl and a bereavement counsellor. Very sad, they've had to bury their son. But is it fair that other families should suffer? Other families that could do with this extra room will be denied that. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. You can text 81333. Start your text 3CR. Put your name on, please. Otherwise, I'm not going to read it out. Facebook.com/BBC 3CR. I'd kick it in the head when he was 25. Speed jive, don't want to stay alive when you're 25. And when he's stealing clothes with marks and sparks, and Freddy's got spots from ripping up the stars from his face, funky little road rage. The television man is crazy, Sam with juvenile delinquent Rex. Oh man, I need TV when I got T-Rex. Oh brother, you can, I'm a good man.
It's a real mean team, but we can love. Oh yes, we can love. And my brother's back at home with his Beatles and his Stones. We never got it off on that revolution stuff. What a drag. Too many snags. Now I drunk a lot of wine and I'm feeling fine. Gotta raise some cab to bed. Oh, is there concrete all around? Or is it in my head? Yeah, I'm a blue man. Oh, the young dude. Hey, Goose, carry the news. Oh, yeah. Boogaloo-doo, Shabbat, carry the news. Oh, the young dude. I wanna hear ya. Carry the news. I wanna see you. Boogaloo-doo. I wanna relate. Carry the news. Oh, the young dude. What news? Carry the news. Let's hear the news. Come on. Boogaloo-doo. I wanna kiss you. Carry the news. Hey, you there. Oh, the young dude. With the glasses. Carry the news. I want you. I want you to the front. Carry the news.
Who's he shouting at there? You with the glasses.
'Cause I want it.
You with the glasses.
Bring it. Come on.
Okay, here's a phone in. Here's a phone in for you. When have you been spoken to? Well, you've been in the audience of a concert and the singer has said something to you from the stage. Oh, yes. 08459 455 555. I went to see a great band, Arthur Lee and Love. You won't know who they are. Doesn't matter. And I kept shouting out for this one song, for the whole thing. I was being an irritating person. Very irritating. And then he just stopped the show and went, OK, this guy's getting on my nerves. I'm going to sing a song for this guy here. That was for me. When have you been in the audience and either someone in the play or in a rock group or in a band or in a show or something has said something to you? Maybe, and this is great, because we went to see my 3-year-old boy in his first Christmas show. Christmas, obviously. And he spoke to us during the show. He was sat there and he kept waving at us, very gently, just waving. Then he'd poke his tongue out at us. And then there was a song that was quite short and he said, Mama, that song was really short. When have you been in the audience for something and someone on the stage has said something to you directly? 08459 455 555. Right. Travel news now, Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Well, no major problems out there this morning. It's all looking fairly good on the sensors. Motorways in particular running fairly well, actually. All looking good heading down the western stretch of the M25 in both directions. And the M1 really not looking too bad, actually. We had a lot of problems yesterday morning around Stevenage, but it is looking like it's moving fairly nicely at the moment. Usual delays and also not causing too much of a problem at the moment. The North Orbital Road looking good, as is the A428 as well. And don't forget, it is very foggy out there this morning, so do be aware heading out on the roads. It's looking particularly tricky out there, actually, just due to the weather. Trains and tubes, however, are still looking very good. No problems to update you with on the departure boards there. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. 6:15 exactly. It's Tuesday the 19th of February. These are your headlines this morning on BBC Three Counties Radio. A couple from Welling say they would rather go hungry when bedroom tax comes in than give up the room they've been keeping as a shrine to their dead son. The jury in the Rachel Manning murder trial have failed to reach a verdict at Luton Crown Court, so there'll now be a retrial. In sport, Watford are at Ipswich tonight in the Championship with defender Joel Ekstrand back in the squad. The weather today for Beds, Hearts and Bucks. Foggy and frosty this morning, drier and brighter later with a top temperature of 8 degrees. And coming up, insurers, the AA, say the number of cars damaged by potholes in roads has doubled over the last year. We'll find out more before 6:30.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
when you need local news.
The passenger's been banned from EasyJet flights for the rest of his life.
The consumer group Which says more than half the UK's train companies have a customer satisfaction score of 50% or lower.
When you need local travel.
We're recovering an accident. One car involved southbound at Sutton Road, Milton Keynes Central to Watford Junction, and London Euston delayed by 15 minutes.
When you need local weather.
Then we'll see temperatures drop to -1, -2 degrees Celsius. A widespread frost into tomorrow morning.
BBC Three Counties Radio and bbc.co.uk/Three Counties.
So, when have you ever been at a concert or at a show and someone on stage has said something to you? Kelly Betts, member of our team, has just messaged me. One of the singers from the Brotherhood of Man stopped singing and told me I had lovely eyes. I think it was the Brotherhood of Man. It could have been Bucks Fizz. They're the same thing, yeah? Right, well, they're not the same thing, Kelly Betts, but it works. 08459 455 555. When have you been at a concert or a show? I was I went to see, this was years ago, Kevin Spacey in The Iceman Cometh, which is one of those plays. When a play has 2 intervals, you know you're in for a long night. It was 3.5 hours long. Okay, he didn't say this to me, but I thought this was so cool. It really intense drama. It was a drama. And about 2 hours into it, someone's mobile phone went off in the audience. And Kevin Spacey stepped forward, pointed at the man and said, "Tell them we're busy." And then went straight back into the play. How cool is that? When have you been in the audience of a play, a concert, a kids' show, and someone in the show has spoken to you? 08459 455 555. You can text 81333. Start your text 3CR. Include your name, please. Maybe we'll speak to you after this. Bit of Benny King.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountain should crumble the sea, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me, oh, stand by me, oh, stand now. Stand by me. Stand by me. Whenever you're in trouble, won't you stand by me? Oh, stand by me. Won't you stand now? Oh, stand by.
Potholes everywhere and not a drop to drink. No, hang on, that's wrong. But they're the scourge of motorists, cyclists, pedestrians, and they're at their worst following weeks of cold and wet weather. They're just everywhere at the moment, aren't they? And some of them are huge. Insurers, the AA, say the number of cars damaged by potholes in roads has doubled over the last year. Now, opposition councillors in Hertfordshire claim it may be down to you to fill in some potholes, as the council has stopped inspecting all but the main roads. Well, Chris Peck is from the National Cycling Charity, CTC. Morning, Chris.
Good morning.
What impact has the bad weather had on the number of potholes on our roads, do you think?
Well, we've seen a massive increase in a reporting site we use called Fill That Hole. We set it up about 5 or 6 years ago, and January was the about highest level we've ever seen in terms of number of potholes reported, and that's absolutely a result of the very wet weather we had, and then of course we had a cold spell. All these things combined to make potholes open up much more quickly on our roads.
Now, potholes are dangerous. There'll be some people listening to this going, oh, jog on, fellas. Just explain why they are so dangerous, Chris.
Well, obviously, if you're in a car and you hit a pothole, you can damage your wheel, you might have to swerve to avoid it. If you're on a bike, it's much more serious. You know, if you go into a pothole, you can come off, you can get a serious injury, or indeed, we do know that some people have been killed coming off their bikes, having hit potholes. So it is a very serious issue for people on bikes.
What are the rules? Because I remember, was this one of those urban myths that the council would only, if you were going over a pothole in a car and you got a flat tyre or damaged your car, they would only pay compensation if it was an inch deep or something?
The rule generally is 2 inches on-road hazard. But the other thing is that the council has to have known previously that the pothole was there.
Right.
Under the law as it stands. Now, if Hertford just say they're not going to inspect it anymore, then that's very serious, that they're going to now claim that they won't know the pothole's there. I don't think that will stand up in law in a court very often, that they have a proper inspection regime going on these roads. Normally for minor roads, local authorities have to inspect it usually every 6 months or a year. If they're not inspecting it at all, then I don't think they're going to have a very good case to answer if someone hits a pothole and damages their car or injures themselves.
Isn't this all part, though, Chris, of the austerity measures? That cutbacks are being made everywhere. Potholes, are they really near the top of the list?
Well, interestingly, when they do a survey of local authority residents, they find that potholes are very close to the top of the list. When it comes to transport matters, people are more worried about potholes than they are about bus services or about litter or these sorts of issues. People really care about potholes. They do find that it's very irritating that they have to swerve around them. Their road looks very unsightly because of damaged pavement and so on. So it is an issue which people do care about, and we feel it's very important. Around 15% of our members who use our legal services start with an injury which involves a pothole. So it is actually a very serious matter for our members as cyclists.
Chris, do you do much cycling abroad? I was wondering how the foreign roads compared to our roads.
Well, in general, yes, our members tell us, and I would certainly agree, that in places like France, the roads are in a much better state than they are here, particularly on the minor rural roads, which is really where a lot of cyclists do their leisure riding, as it were. And that's the key element, is that in Britain, about 80% of cyclists use these minor road network, whereas here we concentrate our maintenance on the major road network, which of course isn't used very much by cyclists. So, it's sort of who do you want to prioritise, I suppose, is the issue. And I think in some other countries, they're looking much more at investing in the minor road network, which is good for tourism and in terms of allowing local traffic to get to and from places they need to get to. And here we sort of concentrate on the major road network.
Chris, how do you let fellow cyclists know about potholes? Do you have a pothole website, potholes.com or something?
Well, we run this website called fillthathole.org.uk. Which allows you to report the website.
Be careful Googling that, ladies and gentlemen.
It is slightly risque.
Yes.
But that allows you to report the pothole, and we send it directly to the council involved, whose responsibility is the road in question. Over the last 5 years, we've had thousands and thousands, we've had almost 80,000 potholes reported. Around 30% of them are fixed immediately, and we hear back from them. A lot more are fixed, but we don't hear back from the local council or the person who's reported it. Hertfordshire, we've had about 1,800 potholes reported, but only 20% of them have come back as fixed.
OK, Chris, we have to end it there. Thank you very much. Chris Peck from the CTC. Or we can go now to our hole-filling correspondent, Justin Daly. Justin, there's a website called Fill That Hole that we're legitimately allowed to look at.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Absolutely brilliant. Love that name. Love it.
Whereabouts are you? And you're on a pothole hunt today, are you?
Absolutely. People have been tweeting about this already. I'm currently in Luton, but I'm going to be heading off to St Albans. We've had a tweet about this. Apparently, House Lane, leading to the village of Sandridge in St Albans, has terrible potholes. And Ian, to be fair, it's pretty much the same story every single year. The snow comes, the snow then goes, and we see potholes absolutely everywhere. And they are dangerous, absolutely no doubt about it. People often phone in and they say, my car has been damaged. You know, if you're a motorist and you're going through a pothole, that's one thing. But if you're a cyclist going through a pothole, that's something, of course, entirely different.
Do you do much cycling, Justin?
No, I don't know.
You know Paul Scoynes? You may have seen Paul Scoynes floating around. He's our political correspondent.
Oh, is that him? Yes.
He cycled 60 miles, 60 miles at the weekend.
Why would you do that? Why? Come on.
Exactly the question I was thinking. Why on earth? What motor would motivate? You can buy motorbikes now that do the same thing but quicker and easier.
You can do that. Of course, you can go out and you can have a Sunday roast somewhere, but to cycle 16 miles over the weekend, that sounds like hell to me. Absolute hell.
So listen, if people send us in their potholes, are you going to go and have a little look and take some photos for us?
Hopefully so. I'm in the Hertfordshire area. Also, lots of people tweeting about Aylesbury as well. On the A41 there's a few potholes, and also in central Milton Keynes. So we're going right the way across Beds, Herts and Bucks already. People do care about this. I'm in Hertfordshire this morning. Tell us about the worst potholes, and hopefully we as a radio station can inform the right people, and hopefully something can be done about those.
Have you got, I know you're in the radio car, the Three Counties radio car, have you got any tarmac in the back or anything like that to fill these holes?
Hang on a second, there's a high-vis jacket here, so that's a start. There's a high-vis jacket. I'm now going to look for the tarmac, and Ian, by 9 o'clock, you never know, I could solve the pothole problem somewhere in Beds, Herts and Bucks.
Justin Dealey, I really hope you get the chance to fill a hole today.
Yes, hopefully.
Justin Dealey, our hole-filling correspondent, excellent stuff indeed. 08459 455 555. We're being slightly flippant, but as you heard, they are dangerous. And they're a pain in the backside, aren't they? Almost literally sometimes. For recently, I've been doing a lot of driving on the North Circular around London, and there's just a bit when you get near Muswell Hill. Oh, my word! You have to swerve all over the place to try and avoid those bad boys. Going back to this story about the bedroom tax, this couple whose son died 10 years ago, and from April they're going to have to pay about £31 a week extra unless they move to a place with less bedrooms. They've kept their son's bedroom as a shrine to him. Nick has texted in 81333, starting his text 3CR. Although it's sad to lose anyone, after 10 years, it's time to go forward. I lost my brother and two very close friends within a year, but I know they wouldn't want me to sit and mope over the past. Well, we'll be speaking to the mum a little bit later on. What do you think? Time to move on and let go? 10 years with the bedroom as a shrine, hardly touched, the curtains drawn, the lights on? Is that really healthy? 08459 455 555. Right, let's get the travel news now. Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Well, still moving nicely out there at the moment. No major problems to update you with. Motorways in particular are still looking good out there on the sensors, and the usual delays not causing too much of a problem actually. The A414 and the A405 are looking fairly good. That's just the North Orbital Road there, and the A428 heading through Buckingham as well. Really looks like it's moving fairly nicely on the whole. Now the trains are still looking good as well on the departure boards at the moment. No problems to update you with. It is still very foggy out there this morning though, so do take extra care out there on the roads. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Don't forget we're going to be talking about knickknacks in about 5 minutes' time. And have you ever been in the audience for something and either a member of the band or a member of the show, or maybe it was your kids in a show, said something to you during the performance? 08459 455 555. Here's the news with Catherine.
Getting Beds, Herts and Bucks talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 6:30. The headlines. A couple from Welwyn say they'd rather go hungry when bedroom tax comes in than give up the room they've been keeping as a shrine to their dead son. The suspect in the Rachel Manning murder case will be tried again after the jury at Luton Crown Court failed to reach a verdict. And Oscar Pistorius will appear in court for a second time later this morning. He's expected to deny murdering his girlfriend, Reva Steenkamp.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks Sport.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Manchester United are into the last 8 of the FA Cup after a 2-1 win over Reading at Old Trafford last night. Javier Hernandez scored that decisive goal.
And now out towards the far side and the goal scorer Nani. Nani's cross, Hernandez 2-0. Brilliant. Nani this time the provider, and Hernandez with a header that he couldn't really miss with from point-blank range. Manchester United 2, Reading 0.
After being knocked out of the Cup by Blackburn over the weekend, there's a huge game for Arsenal in the Champions League tonight. Arsene Wenger's side host Bayern Munich in the first leg of their last 16 tie, with Wenger urging his side to prove the critics wrong. Watford are at Ipswich tonight in the Championship, with defender Joel Elkstrand back in the squad. The Hornets are third in the table at the moment. Watford scored 4 on their travels on Saturday, but manager Gianfranco Zola says he won't be afraid to make changes tonight.
You cannot play at the same level 3 games in a week, in 7 days. That is impossible. Not only you cannot play them at the same level, but you can risk a lot of injuries because the intensity of the games is so.
In League One, Stevenage play Oldham at home tonight, and Luton Town are set to make changes for tonight's conference match at Macclesfield. Players cup-tied on Saturday will return to the team. Nathaniel Rowe-Turner's back from suspension and Wayne Thomas is available. Manager Paul Buckle has one clear goal tonight.
Keep a clean sheet is the biggest thing on the agenda. I think that's the one thing that's let us down away from home. Earlier in the season we were very solid, which gives us a good platform. I think of late, the last 2 away games, conceding a goal the way we did was disappointing, so I think we need to get back to clean sheets.
And that's your latest news and sport. More from me at 7 o'clock.
On FM, AM and online. BBC Three Counties Radio.
I'm hesitating slightly because I've been sent a very strange, mysterious file via Twitter. I've opened this mysterious file via Twitter, and it's got all of my tweets I've ever sent, going back to 2007. Isn't that weird? I've downloaded my tweet history. I wasn't actually on Twitter in 2007. It was someone said it. The first tweet I ever sent was 2009, February the 22nd, 2009. Can I read this? Hello all. So the commentary begins. We've just recorded the intro and outro for the long and short podcast. They'll be available soon. How dull. That's why Twitter is so pointless. The rest of them are they're a little bit rude. I can't read those ones. Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio, 08459 455 555. Coming up, mementos are cluttering up the corridors of a sheltered housing development in Luton, and they are a safety risk. Well, that's what the council says. The residents disagree. We'll hear their story next. What's your favourite knick-knack? 08459 455 555. And last week we had so many phone calls about your fat balls. The birds weren't tucking into your fat balls. Well, Paul was one of those people who rang in. We said we'd keep in touch with him to find out what's happened. Paul's balls will be on the show in about 20 minutes' time. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. Speak to you after this. Dire Straits, innit?
You get a shiver in the dark, it's raining in the park, but meantime sound of the river, you stop and you hold everything. A band is blowing Dixie, double fall time. You feel alright when you hear the music ring. Well, now you step inside, but you don't see too many faces. Coming in out of the rain, they hear the jazz go down. Competition in other places, but the horns, they blowing that sound. Way on down south, way on down south, London town. Check out Guitar George, he knows all the chords. But it's strictly rhythm, he doesn't want to make it cry or sing. If any old guitar is all he can afford, when he gets up under the lights to play his thing.
with the Sultans, with the Sultans of Swing.
So, opposition councillors in Hertfordshire claim it may be down to you to fill in some potholes as the council has stopped inspecting all but the main roads. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. Barry's in Milton Keynes. Morning, Barry.
Morning, mate. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you very much. But potholes, where are the worst ones you've seen?
Yardley Road, Oney.
But describe... I know this is a tough one, Barry, but describe the hole.
What, hole? No, there's no end of them.
There's 9 of them?
Yeah, they've been marked out 3 times over the years with yellow marker.
Right.
And nothing's ever been done.
Oh, so what? So someone, the council have highlighted these holes by going around them in yellow?
3 times over the years, 2 people come out and marked them.
And but then they didn't go and fill them in?
No. Some must be... if you put a straight edge across, I think it's 5 inches deep.
Aye.
And about 6 foot long.
That's not a pothole, that's a basement. Someone could live in there.
Well, yeah.
Are you ever tempted, Barry, to go out there and fill it yourself?
You'd never do it, you'd need a lorry.
Really? And have you spoken to the council about this?
We've phoned up, but it's a waste of time because they know about it because they've been out 3 times and marked it.
And what do they say when you say, come on, fellas, there's a big...
Thank you for reporting it, that's it.
Well, Barry, thanks very much for reporting it to me. 08459 455 555. We're trying to find the worst potholes. 5 inches deep? Really? David in Marsh Farm has texted in, one of the worst roads is Crawley Green Road near Airport Way. A505 roundabout, to mention a few. Well, there we go. Well, Justin Dealey is out and about, he's looking for holes. Have you got a hole that Dealey can fill? Do let us know. Now, mementos, knickknacks, bits and pieces. They're cluttering up the corridors of a sheltered housing development in Luton, and they're a safety risk. Right. That's according to the Borough Council. Wheatfield Court residents are being told to remove items ranging from ornaments to paintings. Well, our reporter, Iain Duncan, has been to meet one of the residents, Graham Wright, to see what they're unhappy about.
My name is Graham Wright, and I'm a resident at Wheatfield Court in Luton. Our possessions, we put them out in the hallways for the enjoyment of all the residents and the visitors. And the council have told us in a letter that it's not allowed. They're coming in today to take all of our possessions away and dispose of them.
What sort of possessions are we talking about here?
We're talking about all the flowers, the ornaments, the tables that they sit on, the pictures on the walls, and all the electrical items.
Describe some of these items to me.
They're little vases of flowers and little coffee table. Look, this one's by the door and the passageway's restricted by this partition. It's not restricted by our tables. I mean, this is a fixture of the block. They reckon that it's a main thoroughfare for the fire service. But to my knowledge, Bedfordshire Fire Service don't employ any blind firemen. And that's what you'd need to beat to fall over that.
What have we got on there?
Oh, look, there's four ornamental swans, a basket of flowers, and an ornament of a sleeping cat.
And then further along we've got a tree.
Further along we've got 4 foot, 5 foot tall tree. I'm not sure whether it's plastic or the real McCoy. It feels a bit plasticky to me, but it's lovely. I mean, no harm to anyone, and that's in the corner. You would need to be blind to fall over that.
And opposite that?
Opposite that we've got a little table, again in a corner, but the resident who lives in this flat here has taken all the ornaments and the flowers off of it because she don't want them to dispose of them. I mean, this little photo, this little picture on the wall here, we're not allowed to put them up. That's not a fire risk. And the whole of the communal area is a no smoking area as well. Even the women sitting at the bingo at the moment, they put cushions on their chairs because the seats that we've got are 25 years old. They're uncomfortable. You stick to them if you haven't got a cushion. And they're not allowed to do that anymore. There's a disabled resident. He lives as far away as you can get from the main entrance. And he's in a wheelchair. And he's on the first floor. And last week I said to him, "Do you have any problems, Keith, getting from your front door out of the building?" He said, "No problems at all, Graham. No problems at all." He's the most disabled person in the block. I got a petition up, and every single resident in this block that I spoke to signed my petition without any qualms. We had 35 signatures.
How do you feel about what's happening here?
It's wrong. Every way I look at it, it's wrong. No discussion, no meetings. The first we knew about it was a note put through everyone's door last Tuesday.
What will it feel like once all the ornaments are gone?
Well, it'll be like a prison in here. I mean, it'll be like walking down the corridors of Woodhill in Milton Keynes.
You feel that strongly?
Yeah, I definitely do. Are they coming round on Wednesday, putting bars up against the windows, changing it to HMP Wheatfield Court? Who knows?
Well, the council say they found an increasing number of new items have been deposited, causing communal areas and corridors to become cluttered and therefore creating a potentially unsafe environment for both tenants and visitors. Items where we have given permission to be stored in the communal areas have been... Oh, jog on. Come on, it's a load of old people living in a home. Let them put some pictures up and have some knickknacks. That's what old people do. They like knickknacks. They like their little china horses that are rearing on their back legs. They like their pictures up of their family. They like trolls. They like flowers in... For goodness sakes. I don't know if they do like trolls, actually. I'll have to research that a little bit better. For goodness sakes, council. Don't be so petty. Don't be so ridiculous. Let them put their bits and pieces... It's knickknacks. Let the old people display their knickknacks in the privacy of their communal areas if they want to. Oh, I'm angry now. Well, the council are going to come on later on. I shall be as feisty with them as I'm being now when they're not here. It just seems ridiculous. Right, anybody listening to this, we would have had some photos of this, but unfortunately our reporters didn't have his phone charger with him, so we couldn't take any pictures. There's a shame. But is there anybody listening to this, right, who seriously thinks that in a communal area... Of a place like this, they shouldn't be allowed to have their knickknacks? If the fella in the wheelchair can get past without any hassle, what's the problem? Really? Come on. What's the problem? 08459 455 555. It's 6:45. Let's get the travel news with our very own knick-knack, Sophie Tyler.
Beds, hearts and bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Well, still looking fairly good out there at the moment. No major problems to update you with. It is still looking good on the motorways at the moment. The western stretch of the M25 in particular moving nicely on the sensors at the moment. The M1 also looking good in both directions, particularly around junction 7 at Stevenage. Yesterday we had quite a few problems there around this sort of time, but does look like it's moving nicely this morning. The A405, it's still looking good, and no problems on the A421 either, moving fairly nicely through Buckingham at the moment, just approaching the London Road. It is still very foggy out there, so do take extra care out on the roads this morning, however, but the trains and tubes are still also looking good at the moment. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. Morning. morning, it's nearly 6:46. It's Tuesday, the 19th of February. These are your headlines this morning on BBC Three Counties Radio. A couple from Welwyn say they would rather go hungry when bedroom tax comes in than give up the room they've been keeping as a shrine to their dead son. The suspect in the Rachel Manning murder case will be tried again after the jury at Luton Crown Court failed to reach a verdict. In sport, Manchester United will play Middlesbrough or Chelsea in the quarter-finals of the FA Cup after a 2-1 win over Reading last night. Coming up, last week we received a phone call from a man called Paul. He was having problems with his fat balls. The birds weren't tucking into his fat balls that he put out for them. Well, we'll get an update on Paul's balls before 7, but before that, here's the weather with Elizabeth Rossini.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Well, we're starting the day off on a very chilly note. Also a very frosty one, and there's some good patches of fog out there as well, locally very dense in places. So if you are travelling somewhere, do leave extra time for the journey because it is still forming. There's a Met Office warning out for that fog lasting until 11 o'clock this morning. That's when it should mostly have cleared away, and certainly the afternoon is looking nice and bright and sunny as well across the three counties. So some long spells of sunshine around. Temperatures up to 6 or 7 degrees Celsius in Stevenage, Leighton Buzzard, and in Tring and St Albans too. That's 45 in Fahrenheit. So yeah, we will see the sunshine once all that fog has disappeared. Now overnight tonight we'll see an early frost, I think, as the sun goes down. It will feel quite cold at first, and then the temperatures will actually rise as we head towards dawn tomorrow. Clouds spreading in from the east. A few bits and pieces of drizzle perhaps over the tops of the hills overnight, but that's going to be all in terms of rainfall. And then by the time we start the day off tomorrow, it will be 3 or 4 degrees Celsius, but that's probably as far as the temperatures are going to go. Tomorrow, a much cloudier day. A few spells of brightness, I think, through the middle of the afternoon, but temperatures not getting very far at all. For the rest of the week, it is looking much cloudier, much colder, and we've got a very raw easterly wind developing as well that's gradually going to back round to the north, bringing down some even colder air with it. So yeah, today's looking all right once this fog's cleared, but then after that, an awful lot colder. That's the forecast.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Weekdays from 3. Local news.
Campaigners are holding a protest against a wind turbine that could be built near the Buckinghamshire village of Ford.
Discussion.
And we were told when he was 5 days old that the only way for him to have a life outside of a wheelchair would be to have a through-knee amputation at the age of 1.
Debate.
Coming up after 6, we've got an hour discussing business and finance. Later in the show, it's all about the entertainment world. It's the family and lifestyle debate. It's our politics panel discussing how politics affects us.
Roberto Peroni. Weekdays from 3 on BBC Three Counties Radio.
This is a great song. This will wake you up. We're going to discuss Paul's balls after Stevie Wonder. If you want to see Paul's balls, facebook.com/BBC3CR. Might not be safe for work, but do go and have a look. See if you could. There's a picture of his balls from last week and a picture of his balls from yesterday. Has anybody touched Paul's balls? Etc., etc., etc.
Very superstitious, writings on the wall. Very superstitious, letters about to fall. 13-month-old baby broke the looking glass. 7 years of bad luck, you put things in your past. When you believe in things that you don't understand, and you suffer. Superstition ain't the way. Ooh, very superstitious.
this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Nearly 6:53. Last week, we received an urgent call from Joyce in Leagrave, who was having problems with her fat balls. This prompted many of you to call in and tell me that the birds simply not tucking in to your fat balls.
Why is it that the birds aren't eating the fat balls anymore that you hang in the garden?
Your birds aren't eating your fat balls?
No.
How long have you been giving the birds your fat balls?
I've noticed they're not eating them on the wall, on the little hangers in the gardens. They haven't been eating them for about, 4 months. I know the bad weather and they normally go for them, because they can't see food in the snow.
And the birds just aren't tucking into your fat balls?
No, they're not.
Have you got fat balls?
Well, I feed my birds, all through the year.
Yeah.
I buy fat balls like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. How many fat balls have you got?
How many fat balls? I buy them in in containers.
Yes.
Contain about 50 at a time.
You've got 50
and
fat
I
balls?
must get through a container every 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
But the last 2 months, they haven't moved. No, the birds haven't touched them.
So the last 2 months, Paul, you're saying the birds haven't gone anywhere near your fat balls?
Haven't gone anywhere near them.
Kenny Dunstable, I believe you've got fat balls.
Yes, well, if you say so. Yes, we hang on from the trellis, and for the past 3 weeks there's been no birds touching them. I'm looking up 2 now. They've been there for a fortnight and they haven't touched them.
Yeah, I have got fat balls. It is true to say that the birds have been very reluctant to take them. We put several out, 2 or 3 fat balls in our feeder. Will only last a few days. Usually starlings and that will flock down and they usually wreck the thing very, very quickly. But a few weeks ago we put fat balls out and commented then that none of the birds seem to be eating them. This morning I've hung out 3 fresh fat balls and haven't seen a single bird on them.
Paul, could you do us a favour? Do you have the technology to take a photo of your fat balls and send it to us?
I certainly do. I can certainly do that.
What would be great is if you could take a picture now of your freshly displayed fat balls, send it to us. We could follow the progress of your balls throughout the whole of next week. Maybe that could be a little feature with Paul's balls.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there we go. So I know it's childish. Well, I don't. We may have. Is this the correct Paul? It is. Okay, we can follow up this feature, Paul's balls. Good morning, Paul.
Morning, Ian.
We nearly spoke to another Paul about his balls.
Oh, really?
And there was confusion over which Paul's balls we were looking at this morning. It's your balls.
That would be embarrassing.
Would be very awkward, wouldn't it? So, Paul, you very kindly sent us a photograph. It's on facebook.com/BBC3CR of your balls from Friday.
Yes.
We also have a picture of your balls from Monday.
Very good.
So can you describe what happened to your balls over the weekend?
Well, not a nibble. Not a nibble. I've been up there. Sorry, I'm a bit croaky this morning.
Well, if you got your balls out, you might be, yes.
No activity at all. I haven't seen any birds on there at all. And as you can see from the photographs, they look exactly the same.
They've not touched them, have they?
No, not touched them. And we've had other food down and they've eaten other stuff that's there, but no, nothing at all.
And the gentleman we spoke to from the RSPB said that the possibility was that it was so cold that your balls were literally freezing, and that's why the birds wouldn't go for them. I would suggest it's been quite mild recently.
Exactly, it hasn't been, has it? I mean, it's cold this morning. It's very frosty out this morning, but no, it's been very mild.
This weekend, it's been spring-like.
But it's not. But as you know, it's not just me. I mean, a lot of people have been having this, and you can see that those balls have got seeds and nuts in and what have you. And no.
Well, I'll be honest. I'm looking. I've not seen fat balls before, and I'm looking at your balls now, and they look delicious. Your balls look lovely.
Yeah, and they're in the proper feeder and everything. Yep. And like I say, normally they'd only last a few days and they'd be gone. The starlings usually go to town on them, you know.
I mean, if I was in the desert and hadn't eaten for a while, I would happily tuck into your fat balls without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
You're not so keen on that?
Well, yeah, I think you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll stick with the contact lens fluid.
Why is that lad that got stuck in the Australian outback, right? Why is it we're now treating him like a hero? He's no hero. He's an idiot. He had 200 people looking for him. Oh, I'm going to go for a run in the Australian outback. I'll be all right, you idiot.
Yeah, well...
Paul, can we come back? Listen, where are we now? Tuesday. I've got the next couple of days off. I'm back on Friday.
Yeah.
Can we have a look at your balls on Friday?
Friday? Yeah, that's fine. I'll continue taking a few photographs of them.
Good lad.
And, I'll speak to you Friday.
And listen, Paul, when we win the Sonys are the big radio awards. When we win a Sony Gold, you're coming up on stage to collect it with me, OK?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, that'd be terrific.
It's gonna happen. Paul and I will be announced on stage by Chris Evans at the Sony Awards as we receive our Gold Award for the feature that we're calling Paul's Balls. Now, if any production values had gone into this, I'd now hit a button and an echoey voice would go, Paul's Balls, Balls, Balls. But we haven't, so I'll just do this. Travel news now, Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Well, looking busy out there at the moment on the M25 in particular. One lane is closed and there's queuing traffic anti-clockwise. It's following a recovery work and a fuel spillage following an earlier accident. Car and a tanker carrying diesel involved between junction 14 at Heathrow Terminal 4 and 13 at Staines. Congestion is back to 16 at the M40. Also very slow as well between 26 at Waltham Abbey and 25 at the A10. Usual delays there. While heading clockwise, also heavy between 22 at St Albans and 23 at the A1M. The Barnet bypass heading south are also slow between Stirling Corner and the Watford bypass. Everything else, though, not looking too bad at the moment, though we do have delays of 20 minutes on the Stansted Express at the moment. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. Coming up in the next hour. Family, their son died 10 years ago. They've kept their bedroom as a shrine to him. Is it time to move on? We'll discuss it more after the news with Catherine Boyle.
Getting beds, hearts and bucks talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. The headlines: bedroom tax couple say they'd rather starve than downsize, retrial for Bletchley man suspected of Rachel Manning murder, and horse meat scandal spreads to European ready meals.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
A husband and wife from Welling say they'd rather starve to pay bedroom tax than give up the bedroom they've been keeping in memory of their dead son. Cheryl and Michael Chapman have been told they'll have to either downsize or pay more rent when the new system's introduced in April. Cheryl says they're going nowhere.
Oh, I can understand what people thinking, oh yeah, you should get out because you only need so many rooms. And I feel sorry for those people that are waiting on the list to get rehoused. This room is our son's room, and we promised him 10 years ago that nobody will sleep in this room, and nobody has.
The suspect in the Rachel Manning murder case will be tried again after the jury at Luton Crown Court failed to reach a verdict. Shahid Al-Ahmed from Bletchley is charged with murdering the teenager in December 2000. Oscar Pistorius will appear in court for a second time this morning, accused of murdering his girlfriend at his home in Pretoria. The Paralympian denies the charge and will ask to be free on bail. Nestlé has removed some beef pasta meals from shelves in Italy and Spain after tests showed they contain traces of horse meat. The company has stopped deliveries of products containing meat from a German supplier. Elderly residents of sheltered flats in Luton are being told their mementos are a health and safety risk. The Borough Council is ordering pensioners at Wheatfield Court to remove all personal paintings and ornaments from shared areas, insisting it's for their own good. But resident Graham Wright begs to differ.
It'll be like a prison in here, I mean. It'll be like walking down the corridors of Woodhill in Milton Keynes. Are they coming round on Wednesday, putting bars up against the windows, changing it to HMP Wheatfield Court? Who knows?
Hertfordshire's Conservative leaders are being accused of having a DIY attitude to potholes. The County Council's Liberal Democrats claim their request for the roads to be assessed for damage was dismissed by the Conservatives, who said they'd only be checking main roads. The Lib Dems say it's unrealistic to expect residents to report problems elsewhere. Chris Peck is from the Cyclists Touring Club. He says potholes are too great a danger to be left to chance.
If you're in a car and you hit a pothole, you can damage your wheel, you might have to swerve to avoid it. If you're on a bike, it's much more serious. If you go into a pothole, you can come off, you can get a serious injury, or indeed, we do know that some people have been killed coming off their bikes, having hit potholes. So it is a very serious issue.
Sport now, and after being knocked out of the Cup by Blackburn over the weekend, there's a huge game for Arsenal in the Champions League tonight. Arsene Wenger's side host Bayern Munich in the first leg of their last 16 tie, with Wenger urging his side to prove the critics wrong. The weather foggy and frosty this morning, but drier and brighter later, with a top temperature of 7 degrees Celsius. That's 45 degrees Fahrenheit. There's more news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties. BBC Three Counties Radio. First for news.
The reason I mentioned your knickknacks an hour ago...
You're obsessed with my knickknacks.
Aren't we all? Is because you are from Up North, and I guess that kind of thing is still considered very fashionable.
What,
up
like
there.
flying ducks and horse brasses and the like?
Yeah.
Have you been round my gaff then?
No, I've not been invited.
Strange that.
Oh, I say, how rude. How rude. We'll be talking knickknacks soon. Lots coming up between now and 8 o'clock. This is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Some serious things, some perhaps slightly lighter things coming up. As always, good to get your opinion on everything, really. A couple are refusing to move to a smaller council house because one of the bedrooms is dedicated to their son who died 10 years ago. They leave the light on every night for him. How much sympathy do you have for them? 08459 455 555. Where's the worst place in the three counties for potholes? Opposition councillors say not enough is being done to tackle the problem in Hertfordshire. They'll be on the show in about 20 minutes. And knickknacks, mementos, ornaments, we've all got them, haven't we? Oh, I love them. I love a good knickknack. My wife hates them. My wife's like this council that wants to get rid of them. I love them. Well, the council in Luton say they are cluttering up a communal area in a sheltered housing development and they've got to go. Why? Oh, it's dangerous. Oh, it's clutter. Oh, nonsense. We'll find out why in a bit. Facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can text 81333. Start your text 3CR. Include your name, please. Otherwise, it won't get read out. Or, and this is the best way to do it, 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
A couple from Hertfordshire say they'd rather go hungry than downsize to a smaller council home and risk losing their late son's bedroom. Cheryl and Michael Chapman live in a 3-bedroom home in Welwyn Garden City, but because of bedroom tax changes coming into effect in April, they've been told to move or pay £31 extra a week. But they're refusing to leave because they've kept their son Anthony's room the same since he died from cancer 10 years ago. Well, Cheryl's on the line now. Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning.
Tell me about Anthony. What was he like, and what happened when you found out he was poorly?
He was a joker. He loved to tell jokes. He was always smiling, happy little boy. When he was 4.5, when we first found out he was ill with leukemia.
And I've got a boy who's 3. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine getting that news about someone so young and so fragile. How did you and your husband react? How do you feel when you get told that?
It was devastating. It was because the way they told us was that he had a disease of his blood. And that's how the doctor explained it to us. And then it was sort of like, well, what disease? Because you think of everything else, but cancer.
Mm.
And then they came out and said he's got cancer, it's called leukemia. And that was it. It was non-stop for weeks. We got rushed up to St Bart's Hospital. And, and then it was just carried on going from then.
And how old was he when he passed?
He was 14.
14?
Yeah.
I can't even begin to imagine what that feels like as a mum or a dad. But you've kept... That was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And you've kept his room pretty much as it was.
Yes, we have, yes.
Can I ask why? Why you did that, Cheryl?
It was a promise we made to him. Hang on.
You're right.
Yeah.
Don't worry, take your time.
We promised him that nobody would ever sleep in his bedroom.
And if this gets too much, Cheryl, just tell me and we can move on. But I really appreciate you coming on and telling us about this and being as honest as you can. I'm guessing that having that room as it was helps you feel close to him, does it?
Yes, it does, yes. Yes. It was, we've only just... His bedroom had been like that for... We hadn't touched his room at all until last year. And that's when we decided to put the computer desk into his bedroom, so we could feel that little bit closer to him.
Mm.
Because all his stuff's all over the wall still. We've put his hats, because where he lost all his hair, he used to wear all different types of caps. They're all now pinned to the wall. His posters are still on the doors, the walls. There's loads of bits and pieces around the room that's still his.
Cheryl, there are some people listening who might think that keeping his room like that is perhaps a little bit unhealthy for you and your husband, Michael, and that maybe to move on, and by moving on I don't mean forget at all, but to move on for yourselves, that maybe it will be better if you did take his things down. And I don't know what you'd do with them, put them in the box, put them somewhere safe. If you did take his things down and maybe did try and move on, does that make sense?
Yeah, some people have said that to us. Oh, don't you think it's time you moved on? How can you move on from the loss of a child?
Mm.
You can't. That pain is with you day in, day out. It doesn't matter if you box his things up and move out of the house and do whatever. That pain that you suffer every single day, it just doesn't it doesn't go away at all.
But look, I'm looking at a picture of the room now, and I can see, he's got posters and he's got hats and stuff. But you know that Anthony, he's not living in those posters. He's not living in those hats. He's living in you, isn't he? He's in you. He's with you wherever you are. He doesn't. Yeah. He's not in physical things. He's in your spirit. He's in your heart. That's the important thing, isn't it?
It is, yes. But there's also the memories of him in this house. This is the house he grew up in.
Yeah. Well, you've been told, haven't you, because of this bedroom tax, that if you want to stay in that house, you're going to have to pay. I think it's about £31 a week.
We did work it out properly yesterday, and it works out to be about £29.06, and that's including council tax as well that we have to pay.
Do you think those charges are fair or unfair?
I think they're unfair. Why should we move into a smaller house when everything we've got in this house fits this house? The beds, the wardrobes, the furniture and everything like that we've bought over the years of living in this house.
Mm.
Why should we lose all that? Because it's going to be too big to be moved into a smaller house.
There are people listening families who desperately need a three-bedroom council house and might be thinking that it's a little bit selfish of you, perhaps, to stay there. What would you say to those people?
We feel sorry for those people because we've been in that situation where we was waiting for a house, and we do feel sorry for them. But as I said, why should we lose everything? Because the government decide that, OK, then now you're in a three-bedroom house, if you've got too many rooms, you've got to either pay or move. Why should we give up everything that we've put into this house for the last 23 years because the government say so?
Can you afford this £29 a week extra?
No.
What are you going to do?
We'll go without food. We'd rather go without food than move out of this house.
You'd really do that, Cheryl? You'd put your health and your husband's health at risk to stay...
we put our own health at risk.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put his health at risk. He would do that himself.
Do you think... And I didn't know your boy, but do you think that Anthony would want his mum and dad to risk their health for that?
I can't answer that question.
Mm.
And nobody can even ask me that question. People try and say to me, oh, do you think that Anthony would want you to carry on crying? I can't answer that question.
I know, all I can speak is from my experience, and I know that if I were to pass before my mum, I know she'd be devastated, she'd be terribly upset, of course she would, but I would want her to carry on and be healthy and be financially sound and be safe. That's what every son wants for their mum, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Tony was only a child still.
Yeah. Cheryl,
He hadn't had a proper life. He was in hospital for 10 years, in and out of hospital for 10 years.
yeah. But you have the chance to have a proper life and carry on his memory. And when I say put things in his boxes, I'm not being disrespectful. I don't mean you box him up and you forget about him. You have the chance to have a life and carry on his memory.
And we do that here. That's how we feel closest to him here. His graveyard is only 10 minutes away from our house. The council aren't going to move us, and the council gave us that plot because of my health. They gave us that plot so that we would be close to him.
Cheryl, listen, I really appreciate you coming on. I know this obviously hasn't been easy, but I appreciate your time and I appreciate your honesty, and I wish you the best of luck with whatever happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. There we go, Cheryl Chapman there, whose son Anthony died 10 years ago. And because of the bedroom tax, as it's being called, is going to have to pay an extra £29 a week because she's kept his bedroom pretty much as it was when he was alive. It's a tough question. What do you think? Have you got sympathy for her? How could you not have sympathy for her? You heard how upset she was 10 years on. But what sympathy do you have for her? 08459 455 555. There's a woman who 10 years after her son died is obviously still in a lot of pain. I don't know. Do I really have a right to comment on that? It would appear to me that the best thing to do would be to move out, move on, to carry her son in her heart and in her head. But it's not me that's lost the boy, is it? 08459 455 555 is the phone number. Right, let's get the travel news now. Here's Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Starting off on the motorways again, anti-clockwise on the M25, but one lane is closed and is queuing traffic due to recovery work after an accident and a fuel spillage. A car and a tanker carrying diesel involved in this accident between 14 at Heathrow Terminal 4 and 13 at Staines. Congestion is already back to junction 17 at Maple Cross. It's going to take you nearly an hour to get through that stretch, I'm afraid. Also looking fairly busy as well, clockwise just between junction 22 at St Albans and 23 at the A1M. Now the A505, that's Upper Talhouse Street in both directions through Hitchin, also looks like it's closed following an accident involving 3 vehicles just around at Purton Road and Ratton Road West as well. The road was closed around 15 minutes ago. We'll bring you more on that as and when it comes in. Elsewhere looking busy where you'd expect, the A1 Barnet bypass heading south fairly slow between Stirling Corner and the Watford bypass. Everything else though not looking too bad at the moment. Do have delays of 20 minutes though on at the Stansted Express, so do check before you travel. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. I'm still thinking about that chat that I had with Cheryl there. That was very powerful, wasn't it? I'm just trying to imagine what it would be like to be in her position, and of course I can't. 08459 455 555 716. Tuesday the 19th of February. These are your headlines this morning on BBC Three Counties Radio. A husband and wife from Welwyn say they'd rather starve to pay bedroom tax than give up the bedroom they've been keeping in memory of their dead son. The suspect in the Rachel Manning murder case will be tried again after the jury at Luton Crown Court failed to reach a verdict. In sport, in League One football, Stevenage play Oldham at home tonight. The weather today for Beds, Hearts and Bucks, foggy and frosty this morning, drier and brighter later with a top temperature of 8 degrees. Coming up before 7:30, we'll be speaking to Malcolm Cowan, a Liberal Democrat councillor in Welwyn Garden City, about the pothole problem in the Three Counties. BBC Three Counties Radio, first for news.
BBC Three Counties Radio. Tackling your consumer problems on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Don't worry about that loan now. The whole amount has just been taken off. You don't owe a penny.
Gosh, I can't believe this.
Jonathan Vernon Smith.
This has been 6 years of hell.
Fighting for your rights.
You've done more in 2 weeks than I've done in 6 years. I can't thank you enough.
You've fought it and you've won it.
Well, you won it for me. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
If you have a consumer problem, we can do the same for you. Call the team now. 08459 455 555. BBC Three Counties Radio.
I'm loving JVS's consumer out at the moment. He's on fire because he's been away for a bit. He's come back, he's on fire. He's dealing with the most amazing story about this guy who spent, I think it's something like 12 grand on a hot tub. On a hot tub, I know. And the company that sold it to him have all kind of... one fella's gone off to America, and Jonathan's phoning up these numbers he's getting from secret sources that he can't reveal. It's really exciting. It's like Quincy, but without, Jack Klugman hosting it. But it's cracking stuff. He's on fire at the moment, and JVS will be in about an hour's time to tell me what he's talking about after 9 o'clock this morning. But whatever it is, man, that guy could make the phone book sound interesting. All the young people are going, phone book? What's a phone book? Yeah, we used to get this, children. We used to get delivered every year a big book with the phone numbers of everybody who lived in our area. Imagine that. We'd come home and there'd be a big book on our doorstep with, everyone's phone numbers. Incredible. Now, potholes, the scourge of motorists, cyclists and pedestrians, are at their worst following weeks of cold and wet weather. Well, insurers say the number of cars damaged by potholes in roads has doubled over the last year, according to the AA. Now, opposition councillors in Hertfordshire claim it may be down to you to fill in some potholes as the council has stopped inspecting all but the main roads. Well, Malcolm Cowan is Liberal Democrat councillor in Welwyn Garden City. He spotted many potholes in the county. Good morning, Malcolm.
Good morning.
We'll come to you in a second. I just want to say hello to Stuart Pyle, who's in charge of highways at Herts County Council. Good morning, Stuart.
Morning, Ian. Morning, Malcolm. Hi there, Stuart.
Malcolm, how big a problem are the potholes in Hertfordshire?
Well, I mean, I'm only most aware of the problems in my area, but I mean, it is absolutely terrible. I mean, I was out with a highways officer the other day, and he had to bring his car to a sudden stop because there was such a big hole in front of us. He had to stop off and report it and make sure somebody came straight away. And I was out a couple of days ago in my area, and I reported 2 potholes about 2 yards apart, and I filled in the fault report form and said there were 2 potholes. I went back yesterday, they'd filled one and the other one had been left. So we've not only got a massive number of potholes, we've got a contractor that we know is struggling to deal with them, and the performance that they're offering up is extremely poor. So we think that we need to be a lot more proactive and make sure that the county council officers are going out and finding the potholes for the contractor to fill. Whereas when I asked the question the other day at a committee meeting, I was told that no, only the main roads would be inspected, and the rest, well, goodness knows what would happen. We've got a highway fault reporting system, but clearly not everyone has a computer. Not everyone's going to want to spend their time using it. So, we could be in a situation that many of the holes will still be there in months and months' time.
Stuart, what's going on? Why are potholes not being filled in? Why are they being left?
I think Malcolm needs to get the latest information, really, because obviously this time of year we have a national problem of the cold weather, which could literally make potholes form overnight. And there has been a winter recovery programme enacted immediately after the snow, and we're now getting to grips with the number of potholes. Just to give you some idea of the sheer numbers that we're talking about, this year we've repaired over 8,000 potholes. And the most dangerous ones, of course, are the ones you need to get at.
Why was one of the ones?
Of course, we're now down to very low numbers that need filling.
Why was one of the ones that Malcolm reported ignored? That seems silly.
I can't really understand that, and I can't really comment on a specific location. But of course, Malcolm, as a very good county councillor, would of course reported that, or the officer would have reported it, and we'd have gone out and fixed it.
Well, but he did report it, and it wasn't fixed.
No, one was reported, but the one down the road may or may not have been fixed. I don't know the answer to that one.
The contractors are struggling, Stuart.
I don't think they are now. They certainly were, and we called them in November of last year, and I met with the directors of Ringway certainly several times this year. The action plan that they put in place is now beginning to work. The only disappointment we have so far is street lighting. But to give you, again, some idea of the scale, since the 1st of October, we have repaired 9,040 streetlights. And it's true to say that we still have 1,600 to go, but we're fixing them now at around 400 a day. So that gives you an idea of the sort of scale of the problem that we've got.
We'll do streetlights next week, Stuart. Don't you worry about that. Malcolm, you're worried that the minor roads are being ignored.
Well, the minor roads is actually where probably about 95% of the population live, i.e. the roads that aren't A roads or B roads. I mean, another example, I was with a constituent the other day, and she said, yes, they fixed it outside my house, but they did it in the middle of the night. She said it woken up and there was this all noise. So, I mean, this is a road without streetlights. So you've got to wonder at the quality of what they're doing. And I know that one of the ones I reported over Christmas has been fixed twice, what are called temporary faults. It's twice been fixed now inside just over a month, and it's still not right. Another one is worse than it was before they did the fix. So they may, even if they do go out and, they can quote the numbers and say, oh, we've done lots of fixes, in many cases, within literally a week or two, the problem is back to being as bad as it was before, or in some cases even worse. So, it's like sort of pouring water onto sand. The thing is just disappearing. But I do come back to my central point that I think, in the last 2 or 3 years when we've had a lot of snow and ice, there's been a full-scale operation to go out and spot all the potholes so that the contractor knows where to go and fix them. Whereas in this case, we were told that only the A and B roads would be inspected. And the other aspect, of course, is that, from what I've just been saying, that we need to be far more vigorous in actually checking the quality of what the contractor is doing, because in so many cases, they're simply showing that they're not up to the job.
Stuart?
Well, I think Malcolm is, again, wrong here. We haven't changed anything on the inspections at all. We follow, like all local authorities, the National Code of Practice, so we scout all roads, including residential roads. The other thing, of course, to think about is that those inspections have now made us, along with about the 2/3 of the number of reports that come in now from the public, triggered what's known as the Winter Recovery Programme. It is no different to previous years. It's exactly the same. And that is really kicking in now. So the vast majority of repairs are now permanent repairs, whereas Malcolm's right, before many of them were temporary. But you reach a point when doing temporary repairs is no longer cost effective. And that's when we instigated the Winter Recovery Programme on the 4th of this month. So
since the 4th of February, it's been
going on out there.
So since the 4th of February, Stuart, there have been no longer any temporary repairs. These are all permanent repairs.
That's right. Only temporary repairs are done when there's a safety hazard on the road, and we go out and do a temporary repair prior to a permanent one. So we have to fill a pothole in, for example, a major pothole on an A road, may get a temporary repair, and then we come out and do a resurface.
Well, that sounds all right, doesn't it, Malcolm? Things are on the up if they're not doing the temporary repairs.
I specifically asked the question last week at a meeting that Stuart was chairing as to whether we were going to inspect all the roads, and the answer came back from the head of the Highway Service that no, we weren't. We were only going to do the A's and B's. And so I haven't yet to see a single permanent fix. Every single one I have seen has been a temporary fix.
Well, let's go back to that. So let's ask that question to Stuart. Just give us that question again, Malcolm.
First, as I say, my first point is that when I asked at the committee meeting last week, which Stuart was chairing, whether we would be inspecting all the roads to look for faults, as we had in the previous hard winters, the answer came back from the head of service that no, we wouldn't.
Stuart, is that true?
The A's and B's.
No, that's not what happened at the meeting. Malcolm asked a question about street lighting.
No, I didn't. I didn't mention street lighting.
I didn't mention every single road on the 20-day cycle. So that's never changed. And if that answer came out last week, and we'll check the minutes for that, then that was incorrect, because we are inspecting all roads as we normally would do and as we have to under the contract.
Malcolm?
I didn't mention streetlights at all. Well, Stuart asked me if I had any concerns about streetlights. I said my major concern was potholes. So I didn't ask about that.
Potholes are now, and again, I want to stress this point. At the moment, as of last Friday, we have only 267 Category 1 potholes that need to be done. On a 7-day, we have just under 399, something like that, which is a normal workload, and around twice what we would expect on a 14-day. And this is what triggers the winter recovery.
OK, I feel we're going slightly round in circles. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. You heard the last voice you heard there was Stuart Pyle. He's in charge of highways at Herts County Council, and Malcolm Cohen, Liberal Democrat councillor in Welwyn Garden City. Disagreeing slightly. It'd be interesting to see the minutes of that meeting and find out if Malcolm was asking about street lighting or potholes. It'd be well, Stuart has said it there. No. They're going to be checking all the roads as they normally do, and there'll be no more temporary repairs except for emergency potholes. Well, Joan's in Biggleswade. Joan, your car has been damaged by a pothole.
Yes, indeed. On the 22nd of December, driving down from Biggleswade towards Potton, it was wet. There were cars coming to me, cars coming behind me, so I couldn't swerve. I hit a pothole.
Ooh.
It was 4 foot long, 25 inches wide and 4.5 inches deep.
Oh, my word.
It's damaged my wheel,
I bet.
my tyre, and cost me £12 short of £300. I then approached the police as soon as I got home, because if somebody on a motorbike, as you said before, would have gone it would have been a fatality without a doubt along that road. They repaired it, temporarily repaired it, the next day. 3 days after that, we noticed another big hole. There was a person stopped there who had hit this hole and done damage to their car. I didn't, unfortunately, take their name. My friend went to get a tyre, not anything to do with the accident, in Biggleswade, and the man in there said, I've had 10 people before you. He said, you're not another potholer, are you? She went, no. They'd had 10 that morning.
Joan, wouldn't the council, if it's 5 inches deep, then they'll cover the cost of your damage, won't they?
Well, they won't. We have got a bill, as I say, £12 short of £300. I've sent the bill, I've sent photos, I've sent communications, and they're just saying they're not paying it. Now, I'm a 70-year-old pensioner who can afford to lose this sort of money. And the man stopped me. We were down there last week driving down, and there was a man looking at the same place, but it's not as deep, but it is still coming out again, so it isn't temporary. It isn't permanent, it's a temporary still. And I stopped, and I said to him, what's the matter? He said, my car's just cost me £500 a fortnight ago.
Lovely, Joan, we have to end it there. Listen, thank you for that. How frustrating. I thought the rule was, if the hole was more than 2 inches, the council paid. I'd fight that if I were you, Joan. I'd fight that, or get in touch with Jonathan Vernon-Smith after 11 o'clock for his consumer hour. If anyone can sort it out, he can. He's darn good. I think I've got a man crush on him. Here's the travel.
Beds, hearts and bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Anti-clockwise on the M25, one lane is still closed and it's queuing following the recovery work taking place after a fuel spillage and earlier accident. Now, it happened just between junction 14 at Heathrow Terminal 4 and 13 at Staines. Congestion is back to Maple Cross though at 17. It's going to take you nearly an hour to get through that stretch, I'm afraid. Now, clockwise on the M25, also still heavy between 22 at St Albans and 23 at the A1M. While heading south on the M1, also still slow between junction 15A at the Northampton services and the Newport Pagnell services as well. The A505 at Upper Talhouse Street in both directions in Hitchin still closed following an accident involving 3 vehicles at Purton Road there. Road was closed around half an hour ago. Everything else not looking too bad. A few usual delays on the A5 and the A1, but nothing's going to hold you up for too long this morning. But don't forget, we do have delays of 15 minutes possible on the Stansted Express between Stansted Airport and Bishop Stortford. That's due to an earlier fire alert at Stansted Airport itself. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Getting beds, hearts and bucks talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning with the 7:30 headlines. I'm Catherine Boyle. A Welwyn couple say they'd rather starve to pay bedroom tax than give up the room they've been keeping in memory of their late son. The suspect in the Rachel Manning murder case will be tried again after the jury at Luton Crown Court failed to reach a verdict. And Oscar Pistorius will appear in court for a second time this morning, accused of murdering his girlfriend at his home in Pretoria.
Beds, hearts and bucks sport.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Manchester United will play Middlesbrough or Chelsea in the quarter-finals of the FA Cup after a 2-1 win over Reading last night. The former England captain Paul Ince says it was a no-brainer to join Blackpool after he agreed a deal to become their new manager yesterday.
It was a no-brainer for me, watching the team play for the last 14 months. Looking at the players, what we've got here, the spirit of the club, the unity of the club, and it was a chance for me to get back into the hot seat, and if it felt right, and when it feels right, then especially after speaking to the chairman, I think that's the most important thing in football, to have that relationship with the chairman, and it felt right, hence why I'm sitting here now.
Watford are at Ipswich tonight in the Championship with defender Joel Ekstrand back in the squad. The Hornets are third in the table at the moment. Watford scored 4 on their travels on Saturday, but manager Gianfranco Zola says he won't be afraid to make changes tonight.
You cannot play at the same level 3 games in a week, in 7 days. That is impossible. Not only you cannot play them at the same level, but you can risk a lot of injuries because the intensity of the games is so high.
In League One, Stevenage play Oldham at home tonight, and Luton Town are set to make changes for tonight's conference match at Macclesfield. Players cup-tied on Saturday will return to the team, and Nathaniel Rowe-Turner's back from suspension, and Wayne Thomas is also available. Manager Paul Buckle has one clear goal tonight.
Keep a clean sheet is the biggest thing on the agenda. I think that's the one thing that's let us down away from home. Earlier in the season, we were very solid, which gives us a good platform. I think of late, the last two away games, conceding a goal the way we did was disappointing, so I think we need to get back to clean sheets.
And that's your latest news and sport. More from me at 8 o'clock.
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Coming up in the next half an hour, mementos are cluttering up the corridors of a sheltered housing development in Luton and are a safety risk. Shame on you elderly people having knickknacks. Shame on you putting pictures up and memories of your family and your lives. This is what the council is saying. I may have exaggerated it slightly, but the residents disagree. We're going to hear their side in the next few minutes. And where are the worst potholes in the three counties? Reporter Justin Dealey is on Pothole Watch. Can you point him in the right direction? Please, I never thought I'd be saying those words, but indeed, I am. Now, Cheryl and Michael Chapman from Hertfordshire are being asked to leave their council home and downsize or pay more money to stay there. Well, look, Cheryl was on the show just after 7 o'clock, and if you missed it, I thoroughly recommend you go and have a listen to the Listen Again, the iPlayer, because it was quite a painful interview. And she told me that she would rather go without food than leave the house. They've kept their son's bedroom exactly as it was the day he died 10 years ago, and they don't want to lose it. Here's a little clip of what she had to say to me earlier on.
They came out and said he's got cancer, it's called leukemia. And that was it. It was non-stop for weeks. We got rushed up to St Mark's Hospital, and and then it was just carried on going from then.
And how old was he when he passed?
He was 14.
14.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to imagine what that feels like as a mum or a dad. But you've kept, that was 10 years ago,
yeah,
and you've kept his room pretty much as it was.
Yes, we have. Yes.
Can I ask why? Why you did that, Cheryl?
It was a promise we made to him. Hang on.
You're right.
Yeah.
Don't worry, take your time.
We promised him that nobody would ever sleep in his bedroom.
And if this gets too much, Cheryl, just tell me and we can move on. But I really appreciate you coming on and telling us about this and being as honest as you can. I'm guessing that having that room as it was helps you feel close to him, does it?
Yes, it does, yes.
Well, it really was quite a powerful interview. And I've been asking the question, and I don't mean this to sound cold, but have you got sympathy for the family? 08459 455 555. Jeannie's in Aylesbury. Morning, Jeannie.
Hello there.
What did you make of what Cheryl was saying in her story?
I am very close to understanding that. In a way, having listened to that again, I can see that my own situation is maybe a little more pointless, what I'm doing, because the thing is, she had the chance to talk to her son, and this is why it's so important she keeps that promise, because, and I can understand how she couldn't possibly go back on that. She knew he was going to die, and she was able to talk to him. She's able to make a promise that she can now keep. In theory, she can keep, and she should be allowed to. With my own daughter, she committed suicide, so I didn't know she was going to do it, but what I've done is I've kept hold of a car. We are running two cars that we can't afford. We can barely afford to run one. I mean, you know what the petrol situation is like at the moment. But we're running this big old car, and the thing is, it was the last car that she sat in, and my family think it's quite ridiculous. They sort of respect my decision, but I know they think it's daft. And we're keeping hold of this old car because I can't bear the thought of parting with something that has her memory. So although maybe she didn't know she was going to commit suicide before she did it, I don't know what was in her mind before she did it. And I didn't have the chance to make any promises to her, but I now feel it's almost impossible for me to part with something that I remember her by. So I totally understand the way the lady's feeling, and especially now that I've listened to it again, and she made that promise to him. How could you possibly break something to someone you're not going to see again? That would be just too painful.
Why the car, Jeannie? Why is the car so significant?
Well, the thing is, I suppose she spent time in the back of it. We have actually moved house, but she was living in Scotland at the time anyway. So though she came down to stay, it's not the same as, I don't know, it's anything. I've kept hold of lots of stupid little things. You can't help it. They're stupid little things. A car's a big thing that's costing us money. So in that respect, it's sort of similar to this other lady's situation, really. But I think especially as she was explaining she's had time to build up her collection of furniture and everything fits. Seems unfair. It really seems unfair, and especially in the light of she's promised that to somebody who's not around anymore. You know, and I believed when I first lost her that I was going to move on. It's about 10 years now, 9-10 years. I believed that I'd be able to move on, but I really do think that it doesn't really happen. I think you can get on with the rest of your life, but that person is there every single day.
But you said it. You said it yourself. That person is there. Every single day. They are in a photograph, they're in a little bit of jewellery, they're in your heart. They're not in a car, Jeannie.
No.
And if it's costing you money as well...
that's right. I can see the point. In a way, it's like a huge thing to let go. And I do think, when you were saying it would help you move on, in my heart, I think, in a way, that's true. But her situation is different from mine. It should, in theory, be easier for me to let go of a car than it is for her to let go of a house. It's not like my daughter said to me, "Oh, don't ever sell the car, will you?" You know, I know that she was fond of it, and I've got photographs of her with it, and it's a big old thing, and it's, you know, as I say, it's expensive, and we don't use it too often. But I can't. It would almost feel as if I got rid of that, I'd be getting rid of another part of her, and I haven't got very much left as it is, and so that would feel wrong. I mean, there was a dog that we had that she was very fond of, and when she died last year, that was more difficult than just losing a dog, if you see what I mean.
I'm just thinking, this is a tough one, isn't it? I'm just thinking, if you got rid of the car, though, you'd have a big cry, but then you would be able to move on slightly. I don't mean move on as in forget your daughter. You're never going to do that, of course you're not, but it would just... It would just take away some of that weight that you're carrying, wouldn't it?
I think to a small degree it would, but I think in the overall scheme of things, in trying to move your life on, it's not going to make an awful lot of difference. So I think what happens is human beings just aren't logical, and because it's something that most people don't have to go through. I mean, you shouldn't have to lose a daughter before you lose a parent, for example.
I was going to ask, do you think it's different with losing your children as opposed to losing your parents?
I think you've got time to prepare for your parents dying, and I just think there's something so unnatural. It's almost, it feels very, very wrong, especially the way my daughter died as well, because it was sudden and it was her choice. And nobody really understands why she did it. Even now, nobody understands why she did it. But it's just such an unnatural thing, whether that's by accident, murder, suicide, illness, long-term illness, whatever it is just not something you expect to do when you have children. You just don't expect to do it. And so I think it takes that much longer to get your head around it. It's not even so much as getting over it. It's that thought of, how do I get my brain around this? I mean, it's been years and years, and yet I can suddenly think about her, and it's as if I don't really quite believe it, as if someone has just punched me in the face, and I've had all these years to get used to the idea. And you are right. I think that when I do eventually have to park the car, I mean, you know, it'll go bang one day. It will be tough, and I will cry, and I think you're right. You move forward perhaps a little step, but the trouble is I've now come to the conclusion that I will never actually completely move on. And it was something that people were telling me years ago. I don't think that's going to happen, because I think it's just too unnatural a thing, and I don't think people are supposed to go through it in that order.
Jeannie, thank you very much. What a lot of honesty we're getting this morning. 08459 455 555. Back to this couple who will have to pay extra money in bedroom tax because they've got their son who died 10 years ago at the age of 14. They've kept his bedroom as a shrine. Iain, in Luton, you haven't got any sympathy for them?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, it's a very emotive subject, obviously, and you can't understand it unless you're in that situation. But everyone's being told that you've got to move out now if you're in a council house. My parents live in a 3-bedroom house, and they've been told they've got to move out. My mum and dad have got all the memories of me and my sister. In the old days, both myself and my sister were born in the house, in my mum's bedroom. That bedroom is really special to my mum, but they're having to move because they can't afford to pay this extra tax. And I can't see no parallel between my mum and dad's situation and these people.
Is your sister still alive?
Yeah, obviously. My sister's alive and I'm alive.
Well, but then your parents, the situation is different because your parents have got you. They've got both of you to give them new memories in their new home. And that Cheryl, her son, isn't there. That's the thing, isn't it?
But whilst my mum and dad live in the house, when we're not there, obviously we have our own lives to lead, my mum and dad still think of us because they're in the house. Living in the house now. So they've got all those memories, and when they move out of that house, they've lost those memories. Okay, they're still in their head, but they don't see us every day in the house. This lady and her husband, obviously, it's very important to them both. But they have an option. They find the money and stay in the house and keep the shrine alive, or they do like everybody else and unfortunately move out and move on. Maybe it's a good thing for them.
I can understand exactly what you're saying there, Ian. Thank you for that. Mick's in Watford. Mick, what do you think about this?
Well, that last bloke, I can't understand what he's talking about. But I think the tax is completely unfair. Let's put it this way. If everybody that's been asked to move agreed tomorrow to move, how many one-bedroom flats are there, and how many one-bedroom houses are there that these people can move into? And if they can't find enough one to move into, they shouldn't enforce the fines or the tax, because it's not their fault. Most of these people, it's just a way of getting money, because they won't be able to put these people in one-bedroom flats and one-bedroom houses, because there aren't that many about.
So you're worried, and this has been mentioned on this show before, that these people leaving these 3-bedroom houses and 3-bedroom flats, they've got nowhere to go to.
Well, they won't leave them. They'll say, well, we haven't got one at the moment, but you'll have to pay the £31, £28, whatever it is, until we find one. And they won't find them because they're not building them.
Mick, thank you very much indeed. 08459 455 555. What a lot of different opinions. This is why doing this is so great, because you get all these amazing stories. And thank you everyone who's come on to talk about this, because you're all bearing your souls, and it's appreciated. All different opinions, different stories. Quite powerful. Right, let's get the travel news now. Here's Sophie.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
We still have one lane closed anti-clockwise on the M25 and queuing traffic due to recovery work taking place after an accident. Fuel spillage as well between junction 14 at Heathrow Terminal 4 and 13 at Staines. Congestion back to 17 at Maple Cross at the moment. Now clockwise also looking at fairly heavy between 22 at St Albans and 23 at the A1M, while heading south on the M1. Also very slow between at junction 14 at Milton Keynes and 13 at Bedford. Now the A505, that's Upper Tarhouse Street in both directions in Hitchin, still closed due to the earlier accident involving 3 vehicles just around Purton Road. Road was closed around 45 minutes ago, and of course we will bring you more on this as and when it comes in. Barnet Bypass still queuing heading south to Stirling Corner and Mill Hill Circus, and the Great North Road also still slow approaching the Black Cat roundabout. Everything else not looking too bad at all. Trains are back to normal. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. It's nearly 7:46. It's Tuesday, the 19th of February. These are your headlines this morning on BBC Three Counties Radio. A Welling couple say they'd rather starve to pay bedroom tax than give up the room they've been keeping in memory of their late son. The suspect in the Rachel Manning murder case will be tried again after the jury at Luton Crown Court failed to reach a verdict. In sport, Manchester United will play Middlesbrough or Chelsea in the quarter-finals of the FA Cup after a 2-1 win over Reading last night. Coming up after 8, we speak to Alison Thompson, the head of Children and Young People Bereavement Services for the charity Cruise, based in Bedford, about the issue of bedroom tax. But before that, let's get the weather now. Here's Elizabeth Rossini.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
To you, it's a frosty, foggy old start to the day, widespread frost and also some dense patches of fog out there as well. So something to be aware of. I think leave a little bit of extra time for your journey this morning wherever you're going, because visibility is very, very poor in many areas today. So that fog will eventually clear, I think, through the late morning, first part of the afternoon. It will all be gone and there'll be lots of sunshine left to reward us with after this rather tricky morning for some of us. So lots of sunny spells around for the rest of the day, and temperatures will get up to 7 or even 8 degrees Celsius perhaps in Aylesbury, Luton and in Watford too. That's 46 in Fahrenheit. Make the most of the sunshine because we won't be seeing very much of it, I'm afraid, for the rest of the week. The winds will be quite light this afternoon. They are going to pick up into this evening and overnight though. We may just see an early frost as the sun goes down just through the evening rush hour, but then gradually we're going to start to see more clouds spread in overnight, perhaps a few outbreaks of drizzle during the course of the night. Otherwise mostly dry. Temperatures climbing slightly as we head towards dawn underneath the cloud, the breeze picking up too. So we'll start the day off tomorrow on around 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, much milder than today, but those temperatures are really not going to rise very far. It's going to be quite cold and cloudy tomorrow with a keen easterly breeze, highs of 3 or 4 degrees Celsius in many of our towns, and those temperatures slipping even further through the rest of the week. So we're not going to get much past 1 or 2 degrees Celsius by Thursday and Friday. Yeah, it's half-term week. It is going to stay dry, but it is going to be very cloudy. It'll be quite windy at times as well, and that air all pushing in from the east and eventually from the northeast as well. So raw and bitter by the end of the working week. That's the forecast.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Nick Coffer across Beds, Hearts and Bucks.
This Friday, I'll be continuing my tour of Beds, Hearts and Bucks. And this week I'm in Water End near Hemel at the Red Lion.
Nick Coffer.
There'll be archery, live local music and quite a lot of cycling. I might even get on a bike myself. And I know there are women out there who love to wear their wedding dress more than once, and I'll be telling you how you can. So come and join me in the Red Lion Water End this Friday from 12 o'clock.
Nick Coffer, Monday to Saturday from 12 on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Knick-knacks. 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 They're cluttering up the corridors of a sheltered housing development in Luton, and they are a safety risk. That's according to the Borough Council. Wheatfield Court residents are being told to remove items ranging from ornaments to paintings. Well, our knick-knack correspondent Ewan Duncan spoke to one of the residents, Bill Lowe, who's unhappy with what's being proposed.
I think it's stupid and petty, personally.
Why do you think it's happening?
It was supposed to have happened for somebody walked into the table when the gentleman was there with her, which is a load of lies because it was my wife that was with her when she walked into the table. So he's a very dishonest man, whoever he is.
What sort of ornaments are we talking about?
Vases, paintings, little paper flowers. It's supposed to be fire hazards, trip hazards.
And how long have they been there?
Well, ours have been there since last August. A year last August, I should say. Some of them a lot longer than that. 20 years, some of them maybe.
As long as that?
As long as that, yeah.
Do you feel the council will have a change of heart?
Well, I would like to think so. You know, the biggest fire hazard is their own property. All the seats. They're none of them fire retardant. Because I've checked them. I mean, they're complaining about people using cushions and leaving them there. You go and try and sit on there for half an hour. They're all not leather, they're Rexine. And that is awful stuff to sit on.
Well, Labour councillor Tom Shaw is the housing portfolio holder for Luton Borough Council. Morning, councillor.
Morning, Ian.
Be within a second. Let's speak, first of all, to Graham Wright, who's a resident at Wheatfield Court. Graham, what kind of mementos and knickknacks are we talking about?
Hello?
Hello, Graham, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, yes.
Sorry, what kind of knickknacks and mementos are we talking about here?
Well, in the letter that we all received, all the residents received, it says some of these items include tables, plastic plants, cushions, ornaments, electrical items, wheelchairs, frames and pictures, to name a few. So, there you go.
When you got this letter, Graham, how did you feel?
Infuriated. The way they're treating us is I mean, they don't think we're human. We're in sheltered housing and we've been written off by the council.
Well, let's put that to the council. Tom, you're treating them inhumanely.
Completely, and
absolutely wrong. And if you read, think what he said in the letter, I've got the photographs, which I'll be quite happy to drop into on my way home from work tonight. What we've got in the corridor is there's a table with a stereo system being set up on it. The table, 1/3 of the table is in front of the fire door. The stereo system's never been pack tested, and you know from your job as well, underneath it, there's probably 50 old vinyl LPs, which are a fire hazard in the cells.
Hang on, Tom.
Yeah.
LPs are a fire hazard?
When they get on fire, they put off fumes, you know they do.
Oh, Tom, listen to me. No, listen to me.
I'm using it as an example.
I'm not going to...
In front of a fire door.
Tom.
No, it isn't.
I've got the photographs here and I'll drop them in tonight if you want.
Well, I'm living here and I live here 24/7, and there is not a stereo in front of a fire door. I'll tell you what there is in front of the fire door. There's a bloody great tear in the carpet in front of the fire door, and I'll show you the photograph of that if you like.
No problem at all. I live around the corner from Wakefield Court. I spend a lot of time in there. I'll come in and see you any time you want. But also under the stairs, I've got.
By the way, I'm not allowing records as a fire hazard. That's ridiculous.
All right,
Next.
fair enough. One of the other things in the photographs, I'm quite happy to fetch them into you, is a wheelchair with no front wheels on it, what's being put up by the stairs.
Which I reported to the warden back in November, and I said to her, get it down to the Disability Resource Centre and get it fixed or get rid of it.
But we can't leave it in a corridor. What's a fire corridor?
It's under a staircase.
It's at the side of the staircase.
Under a staircase.
Tom, what about paintings? What's wrong with paintings?
No, that's in every single shelter scheme in Luton, and I'll be quite happy to pick you up this afternoon and take you around.
I'm not coming out with you, Tom.
We put paintings up on the wall ourselves.
Right, but why can't the residents put up their own paintings and make it feel like I don't know, home?
They can. You go up to Lucy Park Court. There's paintings on the wall all down the corridor.
So, Graham, they are allowed to have paintings on the walls in the corridor and in the communal areas?
I know. I go to Lucy Park Court about once a month to play pool, and there's paintings, pictures, photographs of old Luton, everywhere, and it's really, really enjoyable to walk from the exit to the pool
But
room.
Graham, hang on a second. Tom is saying that you can put paintings and photos up. Is that right, Tom?
As long as it's up safely, no problem at all.
And what's your definition of safely? Like on a hook, yeah?
On a hook, on the wall, yeah, no problem at all.
Okay, fine. What about vases with flowers in?
As long as it's not in the way of the fire corridor, no problem at all.
Okay, what about little China horses?
If people want to put little China horses in there, they can do. When they put them up at Lucy Park Court, a lot of them were stolen.
So, Graham, it sounds like Tom's saying, apart from the vinyl, which I'm not allowing, you can't say vinyl's a fire hazard. Ridiculous, Tom. Come on, for goodness sakes. And things that are blocking the fire door, it sounds like there's no problem, Graham. What are you moaning about?
Well, in the letter that we all received, the second from last paragraph says, finally, in relation to pictures and cushions, tenants must not put pictures up in the communal areas.
Tom?
I mean, you can't get no more plainer than that. That's plain English.
I will take that over the officers because it's wrong. But the cushions isn't wrong. Everything in the corridors, like the stereo system, there's a communal room only a few feet away. It could go in there as long as it's pack tested, so it's safe for people to use.
Well,
cushions in the corridors, as long as they're fire safety, and they've got the tag on them. Not a problem, but they need to be fire safety. We've got a responsibility to all our tenants to make sure they're safe.
Well, you're wrong on two counts there, Tom. You're wrong on two counts. There's two stereos in this building, in the communal areas.
I'll drop it round to you this weekend.
OK, they're both in the communal areas. They're not in the corridors. They're in the communal areas.
No, who's in the corridor?
And the cushions are on the seats in the communal areas, not in the corridors.
But they need to be fired. They need to make sure that the fire safety certificate's on them all.
Well,
we can't just put anything there. We've got to make sure. The seats you're complaining about have all got a fire tag on them.
You're the authority that come round and visit this.
I do often.
Every 3 months. Why hasn't it been picked up in your 3 monthly visits? And if it is picked up in your 3 monthly visits, why don't we get a letter that's a bit more polite? coming through our letterbox.
I will admit that the officers, I don't think the officers have handled this as well as they could have.
Well,
and I'll be taking that up with the Director of Housing.
Back to this letter.
Some of the stuff they're saying is right.
Back to this letter. If you do have items currently stored within the communal areas of the scheme, they must be removed by Sunday the 17th of February. Any items remaining after this date will be disposed of.
Yeah.
It's not your property to dispose of. I mean, in my eyes, that's theft. You take.
Well, it wouldn't be theft, would it? What we'd do.
Well, it's not your property, and you're taking it away.
Gentlemen, let me just interrupt. I'm sorry to interrupt because I think this is a fascinating discussion we're having here. We are running out of time. Graham, I think progress has been made. Tom has admitted that he
just talked to you about something else while you're there. What is on your radio this morning?
What's it about?
The bedroom tax.
No, we'll talk about that later.
No problem.
Sorry, Tom, we're running out of time. Graham, Tom has admitted he's going to address how this has been handled with the officers. Very quickly, 30 seconds from each of you, starting with you, Graham. How do you want this resolved?
Well, I'm not sure. The ball's in their court now. I mean, they thought that they could send this letter through and we're a load of stupid old pensioners and we won't do anything about it. But they're completely wrong. I've got a petition with 100% sign up. Every person I've spoke to.
Tom, you've admitted that this has perhaps been handled in not the friendliest way. What are you going to do to help these residents?
I'll be having words with the officers tonight, and I'll be quite happy to take Bill round any shelter schemes, and I'll go in Weekhill Court myself. Every so often I'll make sure I'm in there this weekend. I've seen the petition. There's 20-odd names on it. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding where the officers could have sorted it out beforehand.
Tom, listen, we're going to end it there. I'm sorry you haven't got time to talk about other things, but we're very pushed for time. We're going to follow this story. Maybe we'll follow this up later in the week or possibly next week, and just to see if things have been smoothed out a little bit. It seems that maybe there was a little bit of aggression where it wasn't needed, that a little bit of diplomacy might have helped things. Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Councillor. Right, let's get the travel news now, shall we? That was fun.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Anti-clockwise on the M25, one lane still closed and queuing traffic due to recovery work taking place after fuel spillage and an earlier accident. A car and a tanker carrying diesel involved there, just between junction 14 at Heathrow Terminal 4 and 13 at Staines. Congestion is back to 17 at Maple Cross at the moment. Can take you nearly an hour to get through that stretch, I'm afraid. Also looking fairly busy clockwise, just between junction 22 at St Albans and 23 at the A1M. While heading south on the M1, more delays between Milton Keynes at junction 14 and 13 at Bedford. Earlier problems on the A505 through Hitchin. Looking better now. The road has reopened and the accident has been cleared. Trains also looking good at the moment. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. Wow, what an hour we've had. What an hour. Lots more coming up. I shall tell you what's coming up after the latest news and sport with Catherine Boyle.
Getting beds, hearts and bucks talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock. The headlines: Welling couple defy bedroom tax, retrial for Rachel Manning murder suspect, and horse meat scandal spreads to Europe.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
A Welling couple say they're prepared to go without food to pay bedroom tax rather than give up the room they've been keeping in memory of their late son. Cheryl and Michael Chapman lost their son Anthony to leukemia over 10 years ago and promised him that no one else would ever sleep in his room. Cheryl has this response for those who suggest it's time to move on.
How can you move on from the loss of a child? You can't. That pain is with you day in, day out. It doesn't matter if you box his things up and move out of the house and do whatever. That pain that you suffer every single day, it doesn't go away at all.
The jury in the Rachel Manning murder trial have failed to reach a verdict at Luton Crown Court, so there will now be a retrial. Shahid Al-Ahmed was accused of the murder of the teenager whose body was found on Woburn Golf Course in December 2000. Oscar Pistorius is back in court in South Africa this morning following the death of his girlfriend. The sprinter's legal team is applying for bail. He denies murdering Reeva Steenkamp, whose funeral will take place later. Nestlé has removed some Buitoni products from supermarket shelves in Italy and Spain after traces of horse DNA were found in beef meals. The company says it's identified a problem with a supplier from Germany. The councillor responsible for Hertfordshire's roads is refuting claims he's pulling back on pothole repairs. Speaking earlier on the programme, Conservative Stuart Pyle challenged claims from the Lib Dem councillor for Welwyn, Malcolm Cowan, that he'd only be inspecting main roads and expected residents to report the rest.
No, that's not what happened at the meeting. Malcolm asked a question about street lighting.
No, I didn't. I didn't mention street lighting.
I didn't mention every single road on the 20-day cycle. So that's never changed. And if that answer came out last week, and we'll check the minutes for that, then that was incorrect, because we are inspecting all roads as we normally would do and as we have to under the contract.
Elderly residents of sheltered flats in Luton are being told their mementos are a health and safety risk. The Borough Council has ordered pensioners at Wheatfield Court to remove all personal paintings and ornaments from shared areas, insisting it's for their own good. Resident Graham Wright isn't so sure.
It'll be like a prison in here, I mean. It'll be like walking down the corridors of Woodhill in Milton Keynes. Are they coming round on Wednesday, putting bars up against the windows, changing it to HMP Wheatfield Court? Who knows?
And as we heard in the last few minutes, the Luton councillor in charge of housing, Tom Shaw, has said his officers have mishandled the situation and he'll be looking into a compromise. Manchester United are still in the hunt for 3 trophies this season after a 2-1 win over Reading saw them move into the quarter-finals of the FA Cup and set off a last 8 meeting with Middlesbrough or Chelsea. Nani scored 1 goal and created another for Javier Hernandez before Joby McAnuff pulled one back for Reading. The weather foggy and frosty this morning, but drier and brighter later with a top temperature of 7 degrees Celsius. That's 45 degrees Fahrenheit. There's more news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties. BBC 3 Counties Radio. First for news.
Very rarely do I blow my own trumpet, mainly because I don't have one. But if you just tuned in and you missed the last hour, I would have a little listen again on the iPlayer later on if you can, between 7 and 8. Don't worry about the first hour; it was slow to start. 7 and 8. Some amazing stories, very powerful stuff. Some tears, some laughter, a little bit of everything in there. Lots more coming up between now and 9 o'clock, including a Hertfordshire couple are refusing to move to a smaller council house because one of the bedrooms is dedicated to their son who died 10 years ago. How much sympathy do you have for them? Well, lots of you are having your say on the Facebook page, facebook.com/BBC3CR, and we'll have a little look at those later on. Oscar Pistorius will appear in court for a second time later this morning. In fact, I think he's in court already now in connection with the death of Ariva Steenkamp, his girlfriend. We'll preview what's likely to happen next. And have you noticed many potholes around Beds, Herts and Bucks? Well, you might have to fill them in, according to opposition councillors in Hertfordshire. We'll find out where some of the worst ones are with our pothole correspondent, JD Justin Dealey. 08459 455 555.
BBC 3 Counties Radio.
A couple from Hertfordshire are refusing to move to a smaller council house because they haven't changed their son's room since he died from cancer 10 years ago. Cheryl and Michael Chapman have lived in the same 3-bedroom house in Welwyn Garden City for 23 years. Due to bedroom tax changes coming into effect in April, they've now been told to downsize or pay £31 extra a week. Well, Cheryl was speaking to our reporter Jessica Cooper.
This was his 5th birthday. He was mad into Batman, absolutely crazy over Batman. This was when he went to Windsor Safari Park. And that was not long before he passed away. That's when Alicia Dixon, as you can see in the photo, that
we're in
the
that
bedroom's
exactly
the same. Even the poster of Britney Spears is still on the wall.
So this has kind of been stuck in a time kind of freeze since he died, this room.
It has, yes. Yes, it has, yeah.
Some people might think 10 years is quite a long time to have kept a room the same. Is that difficult to hear? Do you feel like it's been a long time?
No, because it still feels like yesterday. When you lose, you're not meant to outlive one of your children. Yeah, you're not meant to outlive one of your kids, and you never get over it. No matter how many people try and say to you, don't you think it's time to move on? Don't you think you should get over it? You can't ever get over the loss of a child.
Well, in Hatfield Borough Council said it sent out advice letters to people affected by bedroom tax changes, but if the Chapmans wish to remain in their property and receive less housing benefit, then by all means this is their choice, and no one will put pressure on them to move to a smaller property. Well, Alison Thompson is head of Children and Young People Bereavement Services for the charity Cruise, based in Bedford. Morning, Alison.
Good morning.
Do you hear this kind of thing often, where parents have set up their child's bedroom as a shrine after they've passed on?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a common thing, and it's something that we've been doing, since caveman times, really, is having memorials and, places of remembrance within the home, typically bedrooms, to the loved one. So yeah, it is quite a common thing.
Cheryl's been doing this for 10 years, and part of me thinks, with the greatest respect, that can't be healthy for her and her husband.
I think it's very much down to the individual. How long that they keep something the same as when the person died. I mean, and there is this argument that we continue bonds with the person who's died. But I think sometimes if you keep something very much the same as it was when the person died, it can sometimes, and I'm not saying that that's the case here, but it can sometimes make the kind of recovery process of grief a little more difficult. I mean, you'll never forget the child. I mean, my mother and father lost a child, lost my older sister, and you never forget. But there is sometimes there are things that can help us to move towards that acceptance, and that
there is something, isn't there, in kind of the pulling off the plaster method, where you kind of do things very quickly to have that massive blast of pain, but then it makes it easier to kind of come out the other side. And you're right, never forget, because that person is always going to be with you in photographs, in your spirit, if you've got religious beliefs, in that kind of thing. But to not be able to, it just feels that they're stuck by having that bedroom as it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, and you can hear the grief is very raw in the voice this morning. It is very, like I say, it's very much up to the individual. But if there are, there are things that are preventing somebody from moving on by virtue of the fact that the bedroom is kept the same, it can prove difficult for that process of grief to evolve, really.
We spoke to, I think it was Jeannie earlier on, whose daughter had committed suicide about 9 or 10 years ago, and Jeannie had kept a car that she kind of connected with her daughter. The car wasn't necessarily that significant to her daughter, but she just couldn't face the thought of someone else in there and someone else getting memories with families. I don't want to say it does sound weird, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way. I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's odd, isn't it, what we cling on to try and bring ourselves closer to those that we've lost.
Yeah, and I don't think it's so much about bringing us closer to the ones we've lost. I think it is about that continuation of the bond with the person who's died after death, and people do collect what to the outsider must seem very, very, peculiar, but they do hold on to things that have significant memories, and it is very common for people to say, well, I've kept that because it was, my daughter's or my mother's, and I don't want anybody else to use it, or because it was theirs. And it seems that thing, that object, is providing, that is facilitating that continuing bond the most. So it can be peculiar, what some people might construe as quite bizarre, but it's actually very, very important for the person who's been bereaved.
Is it different? The things we hang on to when you lose a child as opposed to losing a parent, because the natural order is you lose your parents, you're not meant to lose your children. Does that make us deal with things differently?
I think it's very much again, it's very individual. It's when parents lose children, then they tend to keep hold of the favourite teddy bear or the favourite card game, or like the lady was saying this morning about keeping the photos, the posters up on the wall. These are all things that are very particular normally to the age of the child when they died, whereas with adults, you tend to find that they've obviously accumulated a lot more stuff, a lot more possessions, by virtue of living longer into adulthood. So that there's a greater variety of things to pick from as, salient to that person, really.
Alison, thanks very much for your time. It's Alison Thompson, who's Head of Children and Young People Bereavement Services for the charity Cruise based in Bedford. Well, you've been having your talk about this on Facebook, about this couple who will have to pay an extra £30 a week due to the, in inverted commas, bedroom tax, which is a slightly lazy name for it, but it makes it easier for us all to kind of grasp exactly what it is. They've been keeping their son's bedrooms as a shrine, even though he died 10 years ago. Lorna says, I've no sympathy for them. If they want a three-bedroom house, then do what most of us hard-working people do, buy your own. It's not their house, they rent from the council. As for leaving the light on every day, turn it off and then put the money towards the room rent tax. Javane says, it's sad and I sympathise with their loss, but so is the fact that dozens of families are homeless. They need to move on with their lives after 10 years, whether it's both of them working or moving. Times are hard and maybe this will make them move on with their lives. Carol says, I feel sorry for them, but it's now time to move on. Start by turning the light off. It'll be a start. The next is to move. We all grieve differently, but they need to move on now. Get some counselling and live a healthier life. And Neil says, it's very sad about their loss, but in a time of other families being stuck in undersized properties, the property should be used by a family that needs the space. The loss of their son shouldn't be used to tug at heartstrings to get what they want. Pauline Flittick on the text says, it's not a bedroom tax, it's a reduction in the handouts that people get if there are not enough of them to justify the extra room. Calling it a tax is an insult to taxpayers who fund their handouts through the taxes. Whereas Yenda, last one for the moment, in Sundon Park, says it's nothing short of callous to remove Cheryl from the home. Well, they're not being removed, they're giving the option of pay extra or maybe you'd like to move. What is needed is more social and affordable housing. We're getting to the point where no one can afford a mortgage deposit, yet social housing doesn't appear to increase. Well, after 9, JVS will be continuing to discuss this on his phone-in. He's asking, is it reasonable to expect the Chapmans to pay bedroom tax? You can start calling him now if you want, 08459 455 555, or you can send an email to his show, jvsshow@bbc.co.uk.
This is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Of course, you can still give us a call. I'm here until 9 o'clock, 08459 455 555. We're trying to find... We've been very JD quiet this morning. We'll get Dealey up soon. I miss his dulcet Cockney tones. We'll be speaking to Justin Dealey, who's out and about in the Three Counties, looking for... I was going to say the best, but that's probably the wrong word, isn't it? Looking for the worst potholes that he can find. Before that, here's the travel news with Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Anti-clockwise on the M25, one lane is closed and there's still queuing traffic due to recovery work taking place after an accident and a fuel spillage as well. A car and a tanker carrying diesel involved there in the accident. Now it's just between junction 14 at Heathrow Terminal 4 and 13 at Staines, with congestion back to 17 at Maple Cross. Going to take you nearly an hour to get through that stretch, I'm afraid. Anti-clockwise again, very start-stop between 27 at the M11 and 25 at the A10 for Enfield. The Great Cambridge Road heading south through Enfield as well, also looking fairly slow, just approaching Bullsmore Lane and Southbury Road, and the Barnet Bypass also slow. That's just heading south between Stirling Corner and Mill Hill Circus. Usual delays there. And on the trains, delays of 30 minutes on East Coast services between Peterborough and King's Cross following a signal problem at King's Cross, also affecting First Capital Connect. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Morning, it's 8:15. It's Tuesday the 19th of February. These are your headlines this morning on BBC Three Counties Radio. A Welling couple say they're prepared to go without food to pay bedroom tax rather than give up the room they've been keeping in memory of their late son. The jury in the Rachel Manning murder trial have failed to reach a verdict at Luton Crown Court, so there will now be a retrial. In sport, Man U are still in the running for 3 trophies this season after last night's 2-1 win over Reading saw them move into the quarter-finals of the FA Cup. The weather today for Beds, Herts and Bucks, foggy and frosty this morning, drier and brighter later with a top temperature of 8 degrees. Coming up, councillors in Hertfordshire say residents may soon have to fill in their own potholes. We'll hear from our hole filling correspondent Justin Dealey and find out where the worst potholes are before 8:30. Oh yes! BBC Three Counties Radio. First, for news.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
There are so many ways to listen to Three Counties Radio. On FM 95.5, 103.8 and 104.5. On AM 630 and 1161. Online at bbc.co.uk/Three Counties. And now on DAB Digital Radio. Search for us, BBC 3CR. Bringing local radio to you in more ways than ever. BBC Three Counties Radio.
Oh, Jonathan.
Yes.
You look so pale.
I've not had a good night.
What happened?
It's true. Well, I went out for dinner last night and had a very nice meal.
I bet you did.
Really
what
nice.
Did you have?
I had a steak baguette with chips.
Ooh, classy.
Yeah, it was really nice.
So it's a steak sandwich.
It's a steak sandwich. It was delicious.
Saves you having to use a knife and fork, which I always find so tiresome.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
And then the dessert menu came out. I'm not really a desserty person.
No.
I've not got a sweet tooth. But there, glistening on this menu was cheese selection.
Whoa.
Cheese board.
I do love a good cheese
board.
board.
Anyway, it was £7.50 this cheese board, and I thought, well, what the hell? Let's live on the edge.
Yeah.
So I ordered this cheese board, and out came this massive... Well, I ate it.
Yeah.
I've been up all night. I've had the sweats.
Oh, cheese sweats.
I've had to take Andrew's liver salts. I've had nightmares.
Really?
Oh, I've had the worst night's sleep ever. It's been horrible.
I get indigestion when I have cheese. I don't get cheese sweats.
It's like I had flu.
Really? You look awful now.
The cheese coming out of me. It's disgusting.
Your sweat, was it all kind of gloopy and yellow? Cheesy sweat. Can I just say,
what?
Thoroughly enjoying this hot tub story on your consumer hour. It's full of... It's got everything. It's got glamour. It's got big bucks. It's got people in Los Angeles. It's got you getting addresses and phone numbers through secret sources you can't... It's wonderful. It's got everything to it. Fascinating.
Well, today we have a top lawyer coming on the programme to advise, is it possible to sue this man in America?
Yeah.
We'll find out after 11.
I'm genuine. I think it's one of the best stories you've done, and you're handling it superbly.
Really? Thanks very much.
I think it could be turned into a drama on Radio 4.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, OK. All right. Well, I'll be talking to Nick later on. He is the friend of Mr. Sparman. So we'll talk to him after 11 this morning.
What have you got coming up at 9 o'clock?
Coming up on the big phone in this morning, continuing this story that you've been highlighting this morning, I'm asking, is it reasonable to expect the Chapmans to pay bedroom tax? It's this Welling couple. I know you were speaking to Cheryl earlier. Cheryl and Michael Chapman have lived in a 3-bedroom council house for 23 years. They haven't touched their son's room since he died of leukemia 10 years ago. But when the bedroom tax comes into force in April, they'll either have to downsize or pay around 30 quid a week to stay where they are. Well, the question I'm asking from 9 is, and we're continuing this discussion that you've been having this morning, I know lots of people want to talk about it, is it reasonable to expect the Chapmans to pay bedroom tax? Yes or no? Your view from 9 on the big phone-in.
I can see every side to this story. I do think that 10 years is a long time to leave a room like that, and I do think it would be healthier if they were able to kind of dismantle that room in some respectful way.
Yes. I have a friend who, her brother died of leukemia when he was 17, and they moved, I think they probably moved about 5 years afterwards, but that move was very difficult for them to do, particularly for my friend's mum, who obviously had lost her son, her only son.
Yeah.
And it was a real wrench. But I think if they were to kind of look back on it now, they would probably say that move was actually in some ways helpful, because it allowed a kind of a fresh start. And that's not to say you're forgetting your son that has died,
but isn't it?
It's just making that break from perhaps very unhappy memories. Because when someone dies as well, I mean, my mum died in our family home. My dad still lives there. And there's always those memories there, if someone has died at home, of that person that you've lost. And I wonder whether sometimes it is better, even though you don't feel it at the time, to make a break and to have a fresh start, and whether it allows you to kind of move on with your life. I guess everyone's different.
Everyone's different. Jonathan, I should be listening. 08459 455 555 is the phone number. jvsshow@bbc.co.uk.
The BBC in beds, hearts and bucks. This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, We've been JD Light. JD, are you there?
Yes, Ian.
I've missed you. I've missed you, brother.
Oh, I've missed you too.
It's between 7 and 8, it was very, very busy, and we just couldn't squeeze you in and give you what you deserved.
Great hour. Really enjoyed it.
Now, the reason we've got you on, insurers, the AA, say that the number of cars damaged by potholes in roads has doubled over the last year. Opposition councillors in Hertfordshire claim it may be down to you, not you, Justin, I'm talking to the listener now, although you know, maybe we can send you out to do that next week. You, dear listener, to fill in some potholes as the council has stopped inspecting all but the main roads. Well, our hole-filling correspondent, Justin Dealey, you've been out finding out where the worst potholes are in the 3 counties.
Absolutely.
Where are you now, sir?
Ian, I'm in St Albans. As you know, I was desperate to fill a hole this morning, live on air, on your programme, before 9 o'clock.
You were?
I was desperate.
Yes. I could see you bouncing around this morning when you came in. You couldn't sit still. You were so desperate.
I was so up for it. But we got tipped off, Ian, that House Lane in Sandridge in St Albans was bad for potholes.
Yeah.
Really, really bad. When I spoke to you at 6:20, I had my high-vis jacket, that was at the ready.
Yeah.
I had my tarmac, that was at the ready. Yeah. And I wanted to go to work. Well, when I arrived in Sandridge this morning, well, it certainly appears that the council had beaten me to it, because after speaking to locals and after driving down House Lane, those potholes were repaired about a week ago. But I have been speaking to people in the village about how bad they were before, and this is what they've had to say. Well, William, we're looking at House Lane here. You're in the motor trade. Just how bad is that road for potholes? How bad has it been?
Oh, it's terrible. You bottom your suspension most of the time as you go down there, and there's no width anyway, so you've got to bounce off the potholes. You've got no choice.
And is it the same situation every year? The snow comes, the snow goes, and then we see all the potholes once again?
Well, yeah, it's a terrible road. It hasn't got a curb on it or anything like that, so you just rely on the banks all the time.
Well, Mike, you live locally now, but you are from New York. Would you say the potholes in this country are amongst the worst in the world?
Well, the worst I've ever seen in my life, and the most uncared for. With a non-caring community leaders, they don't give a damn.
Why do you think that is?
Because that's gone out of the vocabulary of this country, which is caring. Just look at your health service and look at everything else. Look at the poor people. Look at what marvellous Mr. Cameron is doing.
OK, getting away from potholes here, because the potholes is, of course, the main conversation, but getting away from that, some of our listeners may be asking, if this country is so bad in your opinion, what are you doing living here?
I took a wrong turn in the Atlantic.
Well, David, we got tipped off that House Lane was particularly bad for potholes. Thankfully, for you and other locals, that's now been fixed in the last couple of weeks. Just how bad was that road for potholes before?
Dreadful. It's quite a narrow road anyway, and if an oncoming car was coming, you'd normally have to take evasive action, and 9 times out of 10 you'd either hit the potholes or sort of screech to a halt.
But it must be the same situation every year, because we'll be back here next year talking about the potholes, because they will be back, won't they?
Maybe, yeah, more than likely actually, more than likely.
It's one of these things, isn't it, Justin, that we all kind of see them and we sort of go, oh, potholes, but they are a blooming nuisance.
Yeah, they are, absolutely. I spoke to Sharon as well. Sharon said to me, you must go into the city centre, you must go down Brickett Road. That's where I am right now. And yes, 1 or 2 potholes, but I wouldn't say anything too dangerous. But we have had a few tweets about this as well. People tweeting in saying where the potholes are in Beds, Herts and Bucks. Red Ant 6, he says if you head out of Lavendon towards Turvey, just after the 30 miles per hour limit ends there, there's a massive pothole. Also somebody saying Avebury Boulevard in central Milton Keynes near Escape and the Theatre. Silverdale saying on the Aylesbury A41 on the first bit of the dual carriageway there's a massive pothole. That's just before College Road. And also Kiss the First saying it's pretty silly on the Newport Road in New Bradwell. So certainly reports of potholes coming in, but of course, Ian, it's nothing new. We have this situation every single year. The roads are pretty bad anyway. The snow then comes. That makes it worse. And then suddenly we see lots of potholes.
JD, stay there. I want to talk to you about your knickknacks in a second.
Yes, OK.
Thank you. David's from Hemel Hempstead. I just want to get David in first. David, where are they bad?
Morning to you. I live in Hemel Hempstead, and one that really makes me fed up is the potholes along Mayland Avenue, which is the main thoroughfare through our industrial estate. You'd think it would be pretty important to Hemel Hempstead's economy to have a decent road going through the estate. I use it every day. I also as a motorist, I also am a cyclist at weekends, and come up Mayland Avenue. It's dangerous. It's the junction of Mark Road either side of it. It just, as you have to go around, and you're talking quite a few feet, maybe up to 6 feet to move around left or right of them, motorists don't understand what you're doing. And if they kill me, then they're going to lose a taxpayer. And don't we pay enough tax for our roads? And that's what the roads are all about.
David, bless you for putting. Thank you for that, David. We don't want to lose you. We don't want to lose your tax, but we don't want to lose you, David, from Hemel Hempstead. Not in the slightest. It'd be awful. Iain, you should see Pond Park Road in Chesham. Last time I saw it, hardly had any tarmac on it. Worst road I ever saw, says Wendy in Rickmansworth. Let's go back to Justin Dealey, who's not only our hole-filling correspondent, you're now our knick-knack correspondent, Justin. I don't know if you heard the story about this, the sheltered accommodation, where it's being suggested the residents remove some of their knick-knacks.
Yeah.
Are you a knick-knack person? If I were to come to Dealey Towers, would I see little China horses on their rear feet, or the picture of a Chinese lady wearing a green blouse? What's your pad like, man?
Well, somebody mentioned this earlier on about vinyl, didn't they? Am I correct in saying that about vinyl being a knick-knack? Is that correct?
They were saying that vinyl was a fire risk. What?
I mean, in terms of what I've got, I keep things very, very basic, Iain. Very basic indeed. Yeah. When you come into my property, it's just full of music, and there's a sofa, and there's a table, and there's a TV.
And that's it.
And that's about it. You know,
do you have anything... You're very down-to-earth, aren't you? You're a man of the people. Have you got anything kind of ostentatious or over-the-top or extravagant?
What have I got? In actual fact, I went to the Hare Krishna Temple in Watford a few months ago because we're talking about the Beatles anniversary there, and of course George Harrison, he donated that to the people. I was given a very nice gift there by the people at the temple, and that is in my living room. So that's probably the most outrageous thing that I've got.
I tell you what I don't like. When you go to people's houses and you look in their bedrooms, right, and they've got ridiculous, like chandeliers hanging in their bedrooms, that kind of thing, really.
Yes.
You haven't got anything like that, have you, Justin?
I've got a chandelier. Haven't quite gone as far as the mirrors, but no, I've got a chandelier in my bedroom, and pride of place. I saw that and I thought, tacky as, I think I'll take that. Thank you very much.
You can thank Jonathan Vernon Smith for giving me the inside info into your bedroom. I don't know what he's been doing in there, but thank Justin, excellent stuff as always. Thank you very much. Purple plastic.
Beds, hearts and bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Here's Sophie.
Anti-clockwise on the M25, one lane is closed and there's still queuing traffic due to recovery work taking place following an earlier accident. A car and a tanker involved between junction 14 at Heathrow Terminal 4 and 13 at Staines. Congestion back to Maple Cross at 17 at the moment. It's going to take you nearly an hour to get through that stretch, I'm afraid. Anti-clockwise again, still looking start-stop from junction 28 at the Brook Street roundabout to 25 at the A10 for Enfield, and also on the A1 heading south through Edgware, queuing at the moment between the Watford Bypass and Mill Hill Circus. Everything else not looking too bad. A few usual delays on the A10, particularly approaching the Black Cat roundabout, and also on East Coast services. Don't forget we had 30-minute delays between Peterborough and King's Cross following a signal problem at King's Cross, also affecting First Capital Connect as well, where there's also disruption. So do check before you travel this morning. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. The reason I shouted purple plastic is Jonathan just spoke in my ear that apparently Dealey's chandelier in his bedroom is purple plastic. How naff. Speaking of naff, here's the latest news and sports with someone who still thinks Billy Bass is hilarious. It's Catherine Boyle.
Getting beds, hearts and bugs talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 8:30. The headlines. A Welling couple say they're prepared to go without food to pay bedroom tax rather than give up the room they've been keeping in memory of their late son. The jury in the Rachel Manning murder trial have failed to reach a verdict at Luton Crown Court, so there will now be a retrial. And Oscar Pistorius is back in court in South Africa, accused of the murder of his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp, whose funeral will take place later today.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks Sport.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Manchester United are into the last 8 of the FA Cup after a 2-1 win over Reading at Old Trafford last night. Javier Hernandez scored the decisive goal.
And now out towards the far side and the goal scorer Nani. Nani's cross, Hernandez 2-0. Brilliant. Nani this time the provider, and Hernandez with a header that he couldn't really miss with from point blank range. Manchester United 2, Reading 0.
A After being knocked out of the FA Cup by Blackburn over the weekend, there's a huge game for Arsenal in the Champions League tonight. Arsene Wenger's side host Bayern Munich in the first leg of the last 16 tie, with Wenger urging his side to prove the critics wrong. Watford are at Ipswich tonight in the Championship with defender Joel Ekstrand back in the squad. The Hornets are third in the table at the moment, and Watford scored 4 on their travels on Saturday. But manager Gianfranco Zola says he won't be afraid to make changes tonight.
You cannot play at the same level 3 games in a week, in 7 days. That is impossible. Not only you cannot play them at the same level, but you can risk a lot of injuries because the intensity of the games is so high.
Stevenage play Oldham at home in League One tonight, and Luton Town are set to make changes for tonight's conference match at Macclesfield. Players cup-tied on Saturday will return to the team. Nathaniel Rowe-Turner's back from suspension, and Wayne Thomas is also available. Manager Paul Buckle has one clear goal.
Keep a clean sheet is the biggest thing on the agenda. I think that's the one thing that's let us down away from home. Earlier in the season we were very solid, which gives us a good platform. I think of late the last 2 away games conceding a goal the way we did was disappointing, so I think we need to get back to clean sheets.
And that's your latest news and sport. More from me at 9 o'clock.
I bet you got some right tat, haven't you?
I have not.
Ceramic Panthers?
I haven't. I was just imagining that's the sort of thing that Justin might have in his bedroom. Not that I imagine his bedroom a lot.
You finished?
I think I better.
On FM, AM and online. BBC Three Counties Radio.
Coming up in the next 30 minutes, the Olympic and Paralympic athlete Oscar Pistorius is appearing in court in South Africa now to apply to be released on bail before his murder trial. Our reporter Gavin Lee will give us the news on all the latest developments in that case. And we're continuing to talk about potholes this morning. Where are the worst ones in the 3 counties? I'll be speaking to the Asphalt Industry Alliance to find out why it's so difficult for councils to keep on top of them. But back to this Oscar Pistorius story, which really is one of the most remarkable news stories to come out in a while. Pistorius is appearing in court for a second time in connection with the death of Riva Steenkamp, his girlfriend, who he's accused of murdering at his home in Pretoria. The Paralympian has denied the charge and is applying for bail. The court appearance comes on the same day as Riva Steenkamp's family will hold a service for her. Well, BBC reporter Gavin Lee has the details. Gavin, what's the latest?
Morning, and let me bring you right up to date because as I speak, the defence are just putting out their case. But about 20 minutes ago, Oscar Pistorius walked into the courtroom, the Magistrates' Court in Pretoria. The judge asked if he was well. He replied in a quiet voice that he was. A number of photographers were taking pictures. The magistrate told them to stop, that no filming would be allowed. And the prosecution then outlined these details. And bear with me, there's a fair amount of detail here, but they said that Riva Steenkamp arrived expecting to spend the night of Oscar Pistorius into Valentine's Day morning. That she was in the bathroom. She was 7 metres from the bedroom, and there's a passage that links the bathroom to the bedroom. A door to the toilet was broken from the outside. The prosecution inferred that the bathroom door had been locked, and Oscar Pistorius, they say, had told a friend he thought it was a burglar, and they say, how could it have been a friend? Why would a burglar lock himself in the bathroom? And they then say the athlete armed himself, put on his prosthetic, he fired 4 shots and 3 of them hit her through the bathroom door. The defence team is now speaking. This is what they've said in the last couple of minutes, that Oscar Pistorius intends to tell the court everything that happens. There's not a concession that it was murder, and that they've said it was a cold and unfortunate fact that she was shot through the toilet door, and they've questioned whether it would be reasonable to infer that he would know it was Riva. And briefly to mention that the prosecution are arguing it's what's called a Schedule 6 crime, which is premeditated, pre-planned. Usually in a Schedule 6 case in Africa, it involves a hitman or a lot of planning. The defence say it's a Schedule 5 crime, which is a crime in a moment or crime of passion, and both of them are very different effects and determine whether or not he will be given bail today before his trial starts.
Where is Pistorius? Obviously he's in court now, isn't he?
He's in court now, yeah. He argued that he shouldn't be, on Friday, spending any time in a jail, that it wouldn't be fair to put his case together given how distraught he was, and that he says this is an accident, how traumatised he was. So he spent the last few days in a police station, a small sort of 2-cell police station, shared cell in Pretoria. And as I say, he's currently speaking. Andrew Harding, one of the few correspondents in court right now of our colleagues, has just sent me a message to say that Oscar Pistorius while his defence team are speaking. He's got his head in his hands. He's uncontrollably crying, and he has a very sort of strained look on his face. And this is, I suppose, the first sense, Ian, isn't it, that of any, after all of the speculation in the last few days, both of the evidence from both sides, which we now know is clear that she was in the bathroom and she was shot 3 times.
And there have been, the front pages of the newspapers, there's lots of comments and speculation and guesswork about the case.
Yeah, it's a completely different legal system. In South Africa, there's no jury. They haven't had a jury since the 30s, and that's why, the idea is that the legal system, judges are there to be immune from influence. So, South Africa, it's common that, papers say what they want. There are some more trusted papers than others. There's a couple of strains of perhaps lines that are continually being followed up by the South Africans and the British at the moment. One is rumours of anabolic steroids that are found allegedly on the bedside of Oscar Pistorius that exacerbated the crime, to which the police yesterday said they had no details of that, but they couldn't discount it. And also a cricket bat, another weapon that could have been used, and DNA of hers found on that. Again, they've said they couldn't discount it, but it's not come from the police.
Gavin, thanks very much indeed.
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Back to this family, this couple who have left their deceased son's bedroom as a shrine. He died 10 years ago from leukemia, and they've kept his bedroom pretty much as it was. And they will then be forced to pay an extra £30 a week because of this bedroom tax. It's not quite a bedroom tax, and loads of you are on Facebook kind of saying, it's not a bedroom tax. It means a reduction in their benefits. I know, and I think most of us know that. It's kind of a slightly lazy shorthand. It gets the message across. Anthony, for example, says, it's not a bedroom tax. As ever, Labour is trying to label this as a class thing. No sympathy. They have a choice. They've made it. End of. Trying to sensationalise a good move by the government is the BBC being too left-wing, in my opinion. Well, I don't think it's us being left-wing, Anthony. This story is happening, and we're telling you, and we're telling you about the story and allowing you to make up your mind. I don't think I'm guiding you either way whatsoever. And bedroom tax, I feel slightly uncomfortable using it, but it's a shorthand that we all pretty much understand what it is, don't we? I think. Katie says they need grievance counselling. Put their son's things into a box so they still keep the things close to them and turn off the light. I feel sorry for them, but it's time to move on. The memories of his things will still be there if they keep them. They don't need his room to remember him. And Amanda on Facebook.com/BBC3CR says, how desperately sad. I can't imagine how they must be feeling to think that doing this is the answer to dealing with their loss. Poor people. They need some professional help before someone rips their world out from under them. Bill is in Wooton. Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Ian.
Bill, you used to be a housing officer, did you?
I did, yeah.
What's your take on this story and this couple?
Well, it's very interesting. This can only lie in the government's pockets, really, because in housing at the moment, it's terrible trying to house people anyway. I mean, you've got lots of people on the waiting list, you've got people in crowded places. The silly part about this is that older people, especially, who've got memories in their house, and they've got more bedrooms than they need, are going to have to pay to keep those memories. Now, you can't downsize them because there isn't enough one-bedroom places anywhere to downsize them. And even if they did, they've got to get rid of most of their belongings that they've had all over those years. So it's not just the memory of the house, it's the belongings. And the worry that I've got as an ex-housing officer is the only properties that ever really become available are bed-sits. Now, you imagine going from a three-bed house with all the memories and all the furniture and being put in a bed-sit. I mean, that's absolutely dreadful. Even the bed-sits are not readily available because there's a lot of homeless people in those. So the only person who can ever win out of this is the government, because they will force people into paying it because there'll be no other option. You can't downsize any further, really, than the bedsit unless you put a tent in the back garden.
But I think what people have to remember, Bill, is that these people don't own these houses. They don't own their flats. They're not theirs.
That's absolutely true, and it's silly, really, isn't it? If you're a homeowner and you're in single occupancy, you get a rebate for that on your rates, which seems to fly the opposite, doesn't it? So no doubt they'll get onto that one next and and you won't get any rebate for single occupancy.
Bill, thank you very much. Bill in Wootton. Not Wooton. Karen has emailed 3cr@bbc.co.uk. Just over 5 years ago, our daughter died at the age of 17. She would have been 23 this Friday. I want to say, Ian, I hope no one has to go through what me and that lady is going through. To say, pack up her son's belongings is so easy until it happens to you, then it's different. I miss my daughter every day. I live in fear of it happening again as I have another daughter. Ian, life is cruel and horrible. Regards, Karen. Tell me about it. Trust me. I know. We should have a look at the front pages of the newspapers. Let's have a little look. Thank you for that email, Karen. I appreciate all of you being very honest and telling me your stories. And it means a lot that you feel you can trust me with them. So thank you for that. The Daily Telegraph. Oh, we've not mentioned Richard Briers. We've not mentioned Richard Briers. His voice was always reminded me of ginger cake. Oh, he passed away at the age of 79. And there's a lovely picture on the front page of the Telegraph with him, with Felicity Kendall. So, yeah, that's sad. Right to light under threat in planning law shake-up. Historic laws which guarantee householders the right to enjoy the light which comes into their homes could be scrapped to encourage the building of large developments. It was announced yesterday. What? In a new assault on planning rules, the Law Commission began a consultation which is backed by ministers, which could lead to the centuries-old entitlement to daylight being ditched to stop homeowners holding up building projects. And taking up the tango classes could be the perfect way to rid yourself of anxiety, stress or depression. Yeah, I don't think so. The Times, there's some blank-faced models on the front. Michelle Dockery, Rosie Huntington-Whiteley and Frida Pinto. Blank-faced, bland models. I don't quite know what they're doing there. NHS failings cause 1,600 child deaths every year. And more about Richard Briers. What else have we got here? They're all over the shop. The Independent, Richard Briers. The fibre fallacy. Dieters wildly misled by calorie count labelling. Some foods may contain up to 25% more calories than their labels claim, nutritional experts have warned. Wowzers. Does anyone actually look at the calories and go, oh, that's got 632 calories. It means I can have that, but I can only have half of that. Does anyone do that? That seems a crazy way to live your life. And revealed Russia's double dealing on arms to Assad. It's all depressing news today. Briers again on the front page of The Guardian. Ministers offer nuclear reactor deal until 2050. Energy firms may get 40-year backing after government U-turn on subsidies. Calorie count is inaccurate on many foods by up to 25%. The Daily Express. Mum of 11 gets free 6-bed house, and it's you who will pay the £400,000 bill. And why Britain didn't wake up to Susanna. There was a strike at the BBC yesterday. The Daily Mail. Booker Prize winner's venomous attack on Kate. A plastic princess designed to breed. She is a double Booker Prize winner, the darling of the literary establishment, and Hilary Mantel has used her position among the novel-writing elite to launch an astonishing and venomous attack on the Duchess of Cambridge. Mantel, whose latest books are set in the Tudor court, dismissed Kate as a machine-made princess, designed by committee. Mantel also scorned her as a personality-free shop window mannequin. It says here Mantel 60. Why do we need to know her age? Why do they put the age in those stories? And The Sun, palace fit for a doll queen. A jobless mum on benefits is having a £400,000 council house built for her and her brood of 11 children. 08459 455 555. 8:44. Those are the newspapers. Here's the travel with Sophie.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Still looking much the same at the moment. Anti-clockwise on the M25, one lane closed and queuing traffic due to the recovery work following an earlier accident. A car and a tanker involved between junction 14 at Heathrow Terminal 4 and 13 at Staines. Still going to take you an hour to get through that stretch though, as the congestion is back to 17 at Maple Cross. Clockwise also still slow between 22 at St Albans and 23 at the A1M, and the Great North Road heading south through Roxton also queuing just between at the Great Barford Bypass and the Black Cat Roundabout, while heading south on the Watford Way, also queuing between the Watford Bypass and Mill Hill Circus, and the A10 southbound at Great Cambridge Road, also still looking fairly slow between College Road and Winston Churchill Way as well. Everything else really not looking too bad, actually moving fairly nicely out there at the moment. We do, however, still have delays of 30 minutes on East Coast services between Peterborough and King's Cross following a signal problem at King's Cross, causing disruption as well on First Capital Connect. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. Morning, it's 8:45, Tuesday the 19th of February. These are your headlines this morning on BBC Three Counties Radio. A Welling couple say they're prepared to go without food to pay bedroom tax rather than give up the room they've been keeping in memory of their late son. Oscar Pistorius is back in court in South Africa this morning, accused of the murder of Riva Steenkamp, his girlfriend, whose funeral will take place later today. In sport, Manchester United will face Middlesbrough or Chelsea in the quarter-finals of the FA Cup after a 2-1 win over Reading at Old Trafford. And coming up, before 9, we'll speak to John Bullock from the Asphalt Industry Alliance about why potholes appear and what's being done to help the problem. But before that, let's get the weather with Elizabeth Rossini.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's been a bit of a frosty and a foggy start to the day. The fog now starting to disperse, lots of sunshine breaking through. Do watch out though, there are still some rather dense patches out there, so visibility is still pretty poor in some areas, so do allow a little bit of extra time, I think, for your journey, but now starting to disperse nicely. The sunshine coming out, brightening up just about everywhere, and certainly through the afternoon we'll see plenty more long spells of sunshine too. Temperatures up to 6 or 7 degrees Celsius. That's 45 in Fahrenheit for Luton, Aylesbury and Hertford as well. So not a bad looking day, certainly in a sunny spot, because the winds will be fairly light as well. Things are going to change though for the rest of the week, starting tonight. Now we will see a little bit of frost perhaps just as the sun goes down. It will be quite a cold start to the night, and then the breeze will pick up. We'll see the cloud increase and perhaps a few outbreaks of drizzle as well. This is a very weak weather front pushing in from the east. So by the time we start the day tomorrow, it will be a milder start, probably at around 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, quite windy too. The temperatures aren't really going to rise very far tomorrow though. Highs of only 3 or 4 degrees into the afternoon. Lots of cloud around, a little bit of brightness at times. Not the lovely sunshine though that we'll see today. And of course that rather raw, bitter easterly breeze too. That's going to be with us for the rest of the week. It's going to back round to a northerly, bringing down some very cold air from the Arctic. So I'm afraid for the rest of half term, yes, it's going to be mostly dry, but it is also going to be very cold. It's going to be quite gloomy and murky with it. Plenty of cloud and a very strong wind too. That's the forecast.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Tonight, there's 3 games, 6 teams, and 1 place to hear them all. Three Counties Sport offers you live commentary on Ipswich versus Watford.
Goes for the far corner and scores! Almanati makes no mistake this time!
Macclesfield against Luton.
Martin gets in the cross and the header is in from Andre Gray!
And Stevenage Oldham.
A race shot, well, it's fast in, and Stevenage have found the lead already!
3 games live on Three Counties Sport. Tonight from 7, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Insurers, the AA, say the number of cars damaged by potholes in roads has doubled over the last year. Well, opposition councillors in Hertfordshire claim it may be down to you to fill in some potholes, as the council has stopped inspecting all but the main roads. Well, John Bullock is from the Asphalt Industry Alliance. Morning, John.
Good morning, Ian.
Why do potholes appear?
Well, potholes, I'm afraid, are a symptom of a bigger problem with our local authority road network in particular. I mean, what we've experienced is decades of underfunding and therefore not putting enough money into maintaining the roads. The road starts to fail, and the pothole is a symptom of that failure starting, so to speak, in the structure below.
So it's rubbish roads?
I'm afraid it is, but, I mean, when you look at it, a lot of our roads, particularly local authority roads, a lot of them haven't been surfaced for 50, 60 years. I mean, the life of a normal road surfacing will probably be about 20, 30 years. So we've got some very old roads in terms of their surfaces. So I'm afraid we've got to expect them to eventually wear out and have to be replaced.
It's made worse, isn't it, by the bad weather? So if we get there always seems to be more potholes after it's been snowing or wet.
Oh, yes, it is, yes. You get a problem. If you get a small crack in the roads, a little bit of water gets in there in the winter, the water freezes and it starts to break up the surface. Then more water gets down into the structure of the road, and that can create even worse damage, and you're not actually seeing some of that as the heavy goods vehicles go over it. They sort of pump the water and damage the structure of the road and creates a bigger problem.
How difficult are they to patch? Because there was a stretch of road I used to live on, quite a busy bit of road, and there were big potholes. The fellas would come and fill it. 3 weeks later, the potholes will be back. Were they doing something wrong? Were they dodge pots?
Well, what they should be doing is you look at a pothole typically and you see, right, okay, you've got an area here, a hole. So you would normally cut it back into a bigger square hole to get back to something solid as it can be. You then paint it with the black bitumen, or as some people call it, tar, and then you fill it with a hot asphalt mix and compact it properly. Now, if it's done effectively and properly, they will last. I won't say they'll necessarily last for many years, but they'll certainly last for a year or so. But what it really needs is the money coming in to do a proper resurfacing. Because I don't know if you know this, but when you're filling potholes on a road, it's actually 20 times more expensive, longer term, to fill in potholes than it is to come along and resurface the road properly.
I tell you, one of the best smells in the world, John, is a freshly tarmacked road when it rains.
Yes, I must admit, there are a few people that do enjoy it.
It's one of the best. Can I buy that smell anywhere? Is that sent for sale?
Well, no, I think the way you can get that probably is to get someone to get the gangs out to resurface the road outside. And
hang on a second. Hang on a second. I've just realised you're the Asphalt Industry Alliance. You're trying to tout for work, aren't you? Of course you want more roads resurfaced.
Well, we want the roads repaired. I'm a driver the same as everybody else, and I almost actually damaged one of my wheels on the car the other day. Only by luck did I actually miss the hole.
Oh, it's that bump when you've gone over it, you think, oh, nuts, I didn't see that. What happens in other countries? We heard from a cyclist who said the roads in France are fantastic. How come the French are getting it right and we're not?
Well, I think a lot of comment has come that way about the mainland European roads. I mean, we've got to remember that quite a few of our roads, particularly the major routes, they've got a lot of heavy traffic and a high volume of heavy traffic. And it's the high volume of very heavy goods vehicles that actually creates the damage to the road. It's not the cars, it's the heavy lorries.
So, apart from resurfacing the roads, John, is there anything we can do?
In reality, we need the money from the government to get the roads sorted, because we'll all be having to fork out a lot more money. The cost of this repair work is going up year on year.
John, thanks very much. John Bullock from the Asphalt Industry Alliance. I suspect he may have had an agenda there, but it was an interesting chat. That's a great smell. Freshly tarmacked road when it rains. Oh, man, it's even better than cut grass. It's almost as good as bonfires. Wonderful smell. Steve's in Luton. Steve, you've spotted some potholes, have you?
Yeah, there's a few on the A6. There's some near Morrison's in Out Regis. We've done all that work around them roads and haven't seemed to fill the potholes around just past that area. Baffles me. And why do they fill the big holes and leave the little holes? Why don't fill all the holes at the same time? Are they retarded or what?
Well, I don't think that's a word we can bandy around these days, particularly, Steve. But thank you very much for that. Yeah, it does seem odd, doesn't it? That the big ones will be done, and the small ones kind of ignored. The small ones are just as dangerous, if not more so. We don't bandy that word around as freely as perhaps we did in the 80s, Steve. But your point is taken. Thank you very much for that. Sue in Welwyn Garden City has texted in 81333. Start your text 3CR. For this show, I don't know what the rules are on the other shows. For this show, include your name on the text. Otherwise, it won't get read out. My daughter has just moved. She lives at number 24. Between number 8 and number 40, I'm just making sure that the street name isn't here. There are about 10 potholes in that stretch, some as big as manhole covers and at least 3 to 4 inches deep. Wowzers. On the subject of this bedroom tax, I know it's kind of a slightly lazy description, but we know what we're talking about when we say it. This couple, their son died 10 years ago. Anthony died 10 years ago from leukemia at the age of 14. They kept his bedroom as a shrine, 3-bedroom house. They are going to have to either pay £30 a week extra or they're going to have to move, and they don't want to move. So the mum said they would rather go without food to cover this cost than to move. On the text, Annie says the bedroom tax should never have been introduced. It was declined by the House of Lords, but the House of Commons overrules them. This should never have been allowed to happen. I believe it's against our constitution. Technically, we don't have one. I know, but technically. This is the same with the whole of the welfare bill. I have complete sympathy for the lady. Facebook, mixed opinions on Facebook. Some of you completely supporting them. Some of you saying, come on, jog on, this is a great tax. This is a great change to the benefit system. Gary says, why should they move? They'll only put a single mum with kids claiming on the state in there, so they won't be saving any money. Jenny, it's a desperately sad situation. I feel sorry for them. It's not a bedroom tax. It's a reduction in benefits. And who pays for those benefits? Us. Many of us work and can't afford a 3-bedroom house because we don't qualify for benefits or subsidies. Being bereaved does not give anyone the right to be selfish. I think it does give you the right to be a little bit selfish, to be honest, or to expect to be better accommodated than a whole family who have to be squeezed into too small housing. I do feel this couple need counselling. Nobody expects them to move on and forget their beloved son, but he lives within them and within their memories, not in a physical place. Yes, we all keep mementos of loved ones who have passed, but to want to unfairly hold on to a property desperately needed by someone else is a bit too much, in my opinion. I appreciate that promise was made to their son, but why? Did they never consider that house might be too much for them in the future? Drake says on the Facebook, and you can go on the Facebook all day, even when we are off air, you can go and have a little look and a little argument. Play nice on there, don't be rude. Be forthright, be argumentative, but don't be rude. That's the only thing. Drake says people will be forced into private sector housing, which is more expensive to the taxpayer and is unregulated. A report out in 2011 highlighted that over half of private sector rental properties did not match council standards, with a quarter being dangerous. Before such a policy can be applied, the fundamental flaws in the housing supply need to be rectified. However, under this government, house building has slumped to the lowest level since the war. What has also been missed is that residents who are protected with a lifetime tenancy currently will be moved to a short-term tenancy. The council tenant is being attacked from all angles by this heartless and useless government. They really are living up to the tag of the nasty party. There is the argument, I think my voice is going. Wowzers. Luckily, I'm having 2 days off. I know. Part-timer. Back on Friday. There is an argument, though, that these people, they don't own these houses. I've got a mortgage. I have to pay for my house. I have to work hard to pay for my house. They don't own these houses. Well, coming up with JVS later on, after 9 o'clock, he'll be asking, is it reasonable to expect the Chapmans to pay the bedroom tax? And if you missed the interview that I did with Cheryl Chapman, it was pretty strong stuff. You can hear bits of it on the JVS show next, which is always nice to hear. And, of course, if you missed any of the show, you can go to the BBC iPlayer. If you look for 3 Counties and Iain Lee, it's Iain, L-E-E. You can have a little look and you can listen to any of the shows there. And just on the emails, while I'm giving you out all this information, if you have any stories that you think we should be covering, a lot of these stories, they come through the team of hard-working journalists and Justin Dealys that we have. But also, we quite often get emails, or people turning up at the door, or people phoning up saying, "Here, this is happening, you've not mentioned this." If there's something going on in your life, in your house, in your street, in your town, that you think would make a pretty good story for us to cover on breakfast, or you think warrants a little bit of investigation, or you want to hear me arguing with a counsellor on your behalf, you can do that. If you send an email, 3cr@bbc.co.uk, 3cr@bbc.co.uk, and put in the subject Iain Lee, or breakfast, or morning, or something like that. No, not morning, because JVS will have it. Put Iain Lee. Give us a few details and some contact details, and we'll have a little looky for you and see if it's worthy. You might get to meet Justin Dealey. How exciting is that? Here's the travel with Sophie.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC 3 Counties Radio.
Anti-clockwise on the M25, we still have one lane closed and queuing traffic at the moment due to recovery work following an earlier accident. Car and a tanker involved between junction 14 at Heathrow Terminal 4 and 13 at Staines. Congestion back to 17 at Maple Cross. It is going to take you nearly an hour to get through that stretch, I'm afraid. Also getting reports coming in at the moment that in New Road at Walters Ash, it's closed following an accident. A car and a pedestrian involved at Smaldene Lane. Road was blocked around 8:45 this morning. We'll bring you more on that as and when it comes in. Few usual delays on the A1 and the A10, but nothing that's going to cause you too much of a problem. Half an hour delays, however, on East Coast services between Peterborough and King's Cross, and the same can be said on First Capital Connect. Sophie Tyler, BBC 3 Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Yes, you heard me right. I'm having 2 days off. Don't judge me. I'll be back on Friday. David Prever, I think, is in tomorrow. But stick around, because coming up next, it's the excellent JVS show. Ta-ta.
Getting beds, hearts and bucks talking.
This is BBC 3 Counties Radio.
Thank you, Iain. Good morning. Welcome to Tuesday's JVS show. I'm Jonathan Vernon-Smith. And on today's big phone-in, I know lots of you have been contacting the radio station about this story today.